for your future. Next experience. Next adventure. Next discovery. Next inspiration. Your next destination. Cambodia. Kingdom of Wonder.
Chief Delegates, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, today we are so delighted to welcome all of you to the 23rd ASEAN Valuers Association Congress, hosted by Cambodian Valuers and Estate Agents Association. A very good morning to all of you from Cambodia.
Sông Group, Adam, Lô Châm Tiêu, Lô Srei Nên Kenya, Sông Sma Kum Makan Samai, Lược Tim of Haybay, Rabos Sma Kum Navi Dam Lai, Acholana Vato ASEAN. Shnamni, Cambodia Pachimin Kedijur, Direct Chom Kek Prachum Damin Sara Samkhan Muni, Susday Cambodia, Susday ASEAN.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, to begin our beautiful day, we would like now to invite all of you to please respect the national anthem of ASEAN and the national anthem of the Kingdom of Cambodia.
ជាបន្តទៅទៀតនេះសូមអនុញ្ញាតគោរពអាដាមលោកជំទាវលោកស្រីនៅនាងកញ្ញាមេត្តាគោរពភ្លេងអាស៊ាននិងភ្លេងជាតិនៃព្រះរាជាណាចក្រកម្ពុជាគោរព
Cambodia
in our heart, all shall be upon us one. Look in our word to the world, for there's now go from where there is love and for prosperity to life. We dare to pray, we dare to share together for us now. We dare to pray, we dare to share for this way of us.
Thank you, everyone. Once again, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we are so honored to have all of you here with us online. And to begin the Congress, we would like now to hear the welcome greetings from the Chief of Delegates from Brunei. Good morning, Brunei.
អាដាមលោកជំទាវលោកស្រីនិងនាងកញ្ញាកិច្ចប្រជុំនេះមានការចូលរួមពីគណៈប្រតិភូនៃបណ្ដាប្រទេសជាសមាជិកជាបឋមសូមអនុញ្ញាតស្វាគមន៍ប្រធានគណៈប្រតិភូនិងគណៈប្រតិភូនៃរាជាណាចក្រ Brunei Darussalam
And next, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome our Chief of Delegates from Indonesia. Good morning, Indonesia.
ជាបន្តទៀតសូមស្វាគមន៍ប្រធានគណៈប្រតិភូនិងគណៈប្រតិភូពីសាធារណរដ្ឋឥណ្ឌូនេស៊ី
The Honorable President AVA, Mr. Chrek Soknim, distinguished chief delegates and delegates from AVA member countries, and honorable all participants. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning and best wishes for all of us. Greetings from AVA Indonesia. We are pleased to look on that the 23rd Asian Valuers Association Congress can be carried out very well this year, although it's still using online media or due to COVID-19 pandemic and travel restrictions in most countries. This online Congress is one example of how technology is developing rapidly driven by pandemic. The valuation profession now is facing exciting times, especially with globalization and the onset of rapid technological progression. Therefore, following with the Congress theme, valuation in the midst pandemic COVID-19, together we will learn and share experiences how the valuation industry in each country is dealing with the pandemic circumstances and how enhancement of digital technology can be enhanced the valuation process and techniques. Finally, I would like to express my gratitude to AVA Cambodia and Cambodian Valuers and Estate Agents Association for their hard work, skill, and commitment in holding Congress. I also would like to extend the warmest welcome to all Asian member countries, delegates, and other country representatives who have attended as participants in the Congress. I hope all of you will greatly benefit from this Congress. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you, Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, next we would like to welcome our Chief of Delegates from Malaysia. Good morning, Malaysia.
ជាបន្តទៀតសូមស្វាគមន៍ប្រធានគណៈប្រតិភូនិងគណៈប្រតិភូពីរាជាណាចក្រសហព័ន្ធម៉ាឡេស៊ី
Good morning, Honorable President, Mr. Chrek Soknim, all chief delegates, governing council members, and all participants of 23rd ASEAN Valuers Congress. Assalamualaikum and very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to be part of today's Congress, and it is good to see the large number of participants. I believe this is the highest turnout ever. Congratulations, Mr. President, for the hosting country for the success of this event. I look forward to the presentations on the country reports and learn about each other's property market, and certainly looking forward to listen to all the panel discussions in the afternoon. I hope everyone will enjoy and gain as much knowledge as possible, and I wish the Congress a great success. Thank you. Back to you, MC.
Thank you, Malaysia. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, next please join us in welcoming our Chief of Delegates from the Philippines. Good morning, Philippines.
ជាបន្តទៀតសូមស្វាគមន៍ប្រធានគណៈប្រតិភូនិងគណៈប្រតិភូតំណាងពីប្រទេសហ្វីលីពីន
Ladies and gentlemen, please join us in welcoming the Chief of Delegates from Singapore. Good morning, Singapore.
ជាបន្តទៀតសូមស្វាគមន៍ប្រធានគណៈប្រតិភូនិងគណៈប្រតិភូតំណាងពីប្រទេសសិង្ហបុរី
President of AVA, Chief Delegates, fellow delegates, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Singapore and the Singapore Institute of Surveyors and Valuers, SISV, I would like to extend warm greetings to all delegates to this 23rd AVA Congress. The ASEAN Valuers Association, AVA, was established back in 1981. It has now come 40 years of its history, and we have hosted 22 congresses during this period. Since the formation of AVA, many of our chapters have established strong valuation structure and framework for conducting valuation. AVA as a body has come of age. Now in the recent years, many changes have taken place that have an impact on the valuation profession, as well as providing opportunity for values. There's now a greater convergence in valuation work, where the valuation of different asset classes falls under the same set of international valuation standards, with accountants doing valuation work and real estate valuers undertaking business and intellectual property valuation. In due course, ASEAN valuers will play an important role in the global economy with their added business and IP valuation skills. Now, another important development is the disruption caused by technology, coupled with the use of artificial intelligence and data analytics on our traditional valuation processes and procedures. With the onset of disruptive technology, the valuation profession must continue to upgrade, innovate, and embrace technology in ways that would enhance rather than disrupt them. The third important impact is caused by the current COVID-19 pandemic. This is the first time that the AVA Congress is held virtually because of the pandemic. This pandemic has disrupted the way we do our business. It has affected the way we conduct field inspection, interact with clients and fellow valuers, and to ensure that we undertake all the safe management measures to protect the health, safety, and well-being of our people. The theme of this 23rd AVA Congress on valuation in the midst of pandemic COVID-19 is therefore relevant and crucial to allow us to understand the impact much better. I'm sure we'll have the opportunity to discuss the theme in greater depth throughout the day. So in conclusion, I would like to thank Cambodia, and in particular the Cambodian Values and Estate Agents Association, CVA, President Chrek and his team for organizing this virtual congress. It is not easy to organize a virtual meeting. A lot more preparatory work is required. And I would like to congratulate the organizing committee for putting together this event and organizing it well. I wish all a successful congress and a fruitful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Singapore, for your time. We truly appreciate it. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, next, Chief of Delegates from Thailand. Good morning, Thailand.
ជាបន្តទៀតសូមស្វាគមន៍ប្រធានគណៈប្រតិភូនិងគណៈប្រតិភូតំណាងពីរាជាណាចក្រថៃឡង់
Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, Chief Delegate, good delegates, and all participants in this 23rd AVA Congress. Thailand has been in difficulty during this COVID-19, but AVA Congress provides an excellent venue for our learning from other countries, how everybody has been dealing with the situation. I'm very excited to have participated in this Congress. I learned that actually this year, if I'm correct, it is the 40th birthday of AVA, which was created in 1981. In this long period of AVA, Thailand has enjoyed many conquests and benefit enormously from the participation. In this period of COVID-19 outbreak, one thing that has developed very fast is technology, online communication. And I must congratulate bodies that have arranged this online congress excellently. It's very nice, and it's incredible that you have done. I'm sure that everybody in this congress will learn and benefit from this interaction. Ireland has learned so much and progressed so much from this interaction of the congress meeting over the years. I myself have learned so much from this meeting. On this occasion, I would like to congratulate Cambodia and all ASEAN members to be able to join in this difficult time to come together. Hopefully, the next time we will be able to meet face to face. Thank you very much, Cambodia. I must congratulate you. You have organized one of the best online congress I have overseen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Thailand. ขอบคุณมากนะคะ Last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our Chief of Delegates from Vietnam. Good morning, Vietnam.
ជាបន្តទៀតសូមស្វាគមន៍ប្រធានគណៈប្រតិភូនិងគណៈប្រតិភូមកពីសាធារណរដ្ឋសង្គមនិយមវៀតណាម
Good morning, Mr. President Chok Rim, ladies and gentlemen, participants. As the Director of Prime Minister Department, the Ministry of Finance of Vietnam and President of Vietnam, first of all, AVA Vietnam would like to thank Mr. President of AVA Cambodia and AVA Secretary in Indonesia for your great effort to organize the 21st Congress via teleconference. I expect that this Congress will be a bridge and forum, an opportunity for the value of AVA and the representative from the International Valuation Organization to learn and share practical issues and valuable experience in valuation, especially under the context of pandemic COVID-19, as well as to strengthen our friendship and cooperation among ASEAN countries and ASEAN valuers. I wish the Congress great success. Thank you very much, Mr. President, and thank you very much, Chief Delegation.
Thank you, Vietnam, for your time with us today, and thank you to all the Chief of Delegates, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen.
សូមថ្លែងអំណរគុណទៅដល់គណៈប្រតិភូវៀតណាមនិងអាដាមលោកជំទាវលោកស្រីនិងកញ្ញាទាំងអស់ដែលជាគណៈប្រតិភូប្រធានគណៈប្រតិភូបណ្ដាប្រទេសសមាជិកទាំងអស់
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we would like now to have your attention. Please kindly joining us to witness a very special video showcases Cambodian culture. So please enjoy the video.
អាដាមលោកជំទាវលោកស្រីនិងកញ្ញាជាបន្តទៀតសូមអញ្ជើញលោកស្រីទស្សនាវីដេអូស្ដីពីព្រះរាជាណាចក្រកម្ពុជាមុននឹងសន្ទរកថាគន្លឹះរបស់លោកជ្រឹកសុខនីមប្រធានសមាគម AVA និង CVA សូមអញ្ជើញទស្សនា
Next. For your future. Next experience. Next adventure. Next discovery. Next inspiration. Your next destination. Cambodia. Kingdom of Wonder.
Thank you everyone for your attention. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, today is a very special day, and I promise all of you that you will enjoy the moment together. And once again, good morning from Cambodia. Now we are very delighted to invite Mr. Chrek Soknim, our president of AVA and CVEA, for his welcoming greetings.
លោកស្រីនិងកញ្ញាសូមស្វាគមន៍សន្ទរកថាគន្លឹះរបស់លោកជ្រឹកសុខនីមប្រធានសមាគមអ្នកវិតម្លៃអចលនវត្ថុអាស៊ានសម្រាប់ការបើកសមាជលើកទី23នៃសមាគមអ្នកវិតម្លៃអចលនវត្ថុអាស៊ាន
Your Excellency Dr. Onborn Mirat, Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Economic and Finance, international and local delegates, our members.
I would like to say thank you for all the chief delegate from each country that coordinate and bring your delegate to come to join this event. Every year, AVA holds a meeting session for members for the purpose of knowledge sharing and update the economics, standard and techniques of valuations, development related to the real estate markets, and also discuss about the challenge and opportunity of the valuation solution. Moreover, AVA rotates the championship, the president, for every year from alphabet of the country. I'm very honored to be the president of AVA for 2021, and we have the good strategy to lead the team to provide more core value to our member. We obtained about our valuation member in ASEAN country to be the good asset that can provide the good opinion for the valuation market into the clients. However, our member is also provide a lot of service in terms of valuation to the private sector, to the government, and to many requirements from the business, especially for the sale and buying the property and also for merger and acquisition of the company. Valuation service to build trust and encourage people to be aware before they make the decision for doing the transaction for buying or selling the property. We all know that 2020 until 2021, COVID-19 pandemic has impact to a lot of sector in the economy, and especially for the real estate too. During this economic, even though we face the challenge, but this pandemic provide us a lot of changings, both living and workings. That we cannot ignore that this adoption, we need to learn and live with it. And we change the way of working, we change the way of living too. This year, as the president of AVA, it is my privilege to lead the AVA Secretary and CVAs to organize this specific event, and would be focused on the present situation of real estate, and also the most important is about the standard of valuation during the economic. Looking at the prospect of the real estate industry, I believe that the professional valuer and real estate agent must be prepared to respond for future growth of the economic. This is Cambodia is leading term of COVID vaccinated in controlling and split of the virus. Consequently, Cambodia have recently leased the quarantine requirement for full vaccinated passengers when they are into the country, which will attract more investors, especially from other ASEAN countries like China, to invest the real estate and booming industry. Thus, the work of valuation become more critical from now onward. So, just like everyone else, I'm optimistic about the real estate opportunity in Cambodia. And we encourage all ASEAN members to come to visit Cambodia and looking to invest in real estate. And we are here to be served of you. Thank you. And thank you again for all chief delegate and delegate that spend your valuable time to join this Congress virtual event. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President, for your welcome remarks. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, our president here, Mr. Chrek Soknim, and all together with the Cambodian working team, we have been working very hard to make this event happening. Thank you, everyone.
អាដាមលោកជំទាវលោកស្រីនាងកញ្ញាក្រុមគណៈប្រតិភូពីបណ្ដាប្រទេសផ្សេងៗក្រុមការងារនៃព្រះរាជាណាចក្រកម្ពុជាក៏ដូចជាសមាគម CVA ទាំងអស់បានប្រឹងប្រែងលើកិច្ចការងាររបស់នេះដើម្បីបង្កើតឲ្យមានកិច្ចប្រជុំដ៏មានសារៈសំខាន់មួយនេះនៅថ្ងៃនេះ
Once again, Your Excellencies, Chief of Delegates, ladies and gentlemen, at this very moment, we are so excited to introduce to you our guest of honor, His Excellency Akya Mandat Sakricha Onwaniro, Deputy Prime Minister, Ministry of Economy and Finance of the Kingdom of Cambodia, for his opening address.
អាដាមលោកជំទាវលោកស្រីនាងកញ្ញាយើងខ្ញុំមានភាពទីនោះសូមអនុញ្ញាតគ្រប់បញ្ជូនអាដាមអគ្គរដ្ឋសេនាអូនវ៉ាន់យរអបអញ្ញារដ្ឋមន្ត្រីរដ្ឋមន្ត្រីក្រសួងសេដ្ឋកិច្ចនិងហិរញ្ញវត្ថុនៃព្រះរាជាណាចក្រកម្ពុជាឡើងសន្និដ្ឋានថា
លោក Chrek Soknim ប្រធានសមាគមអ្នកវិតម្លៃអាស៊ានលោកស្រី Susan Wichojo អគ្គលេខាធិការសមាគមអ្នកវិតម្លៃអាស៊ានហើយឧត្តមលោកជំទាវអ្នកអង្គការលោកអង្គការលោកស្រីភ្ញៀវជាតិនិងអន្តរជាតិជាទីមេត្រីថ្ងៃនេះ ខ្ញុំពិតជាមានសេចក្តីសោមនស្សដោយបានចូលរួមថ្លែងសម្រាប់ថាក្នុងពិធីបើកសមាជលើកទី23នៃសមាគមអ្នកវិតម្លៃអាស៊ានឆ្នាំ2021ក្រោមប្រធានបទការវិតម្លៃអចលនវត្ថុក្នុងអំឡុងពេលនៃការរីករាលដាលជំងឺ COVID-19 តាំងនាមរាជរដ្ឋាភិបាលកម្ពុជានិងក្នុងនាមរូបខ្ញុំផ្ទាល់ខ្ញុំសូមសម្ដែងនៅការស្វាគមន៍យ៉ាងកក់ក្ដៅជូនចំពោះឯកឧត្តមលោកជំទាវអ្នកអង្គការលោកអង្គការលោកស្រីភ្ញៀវជាតិនិងអន្តរជាតិគ្រប់រូបជាសមាជិកសមាជិកានៃអង្គសមាជដែលបានអញ្ជើញចូលរួមក្នុងកម្មវិធីដ៏មានសារៈសំខាន់នេះខ្ញុំក៏សូមវាយតម្លៃខ្ពស់ចំពោះថ្នាក់ដឹកនាំអគ្គលេខាធិការនិងសហការីនៃសមាគមអ្នកវិតម្លៃអាស៊ានដែលបានរួមគ្នារៀបចំសមាជលើកទី23នៃសមាគមអ្នកវិតម្លៃអចលនវត្ថុអាស៊ានប្រកបដោយស្មារតីសាមគ្គីភាពកិច្ចសហប្រតិបត្តិការប្រសិទ្ធភាពនិងសក្តិសិទ្ធិភាពខ្ពស់ការរៀបចំសមាជលើកទី23នេះមានគោលបំណងពង្រឹងកិច្ចសហប្រតិបត្តិការរវាងតួអង្គសំខាន់សម្រាប់ផ្លាស់ប្ដូរបទពិសោធន៍ពាក់ព័ន្ធនឹងទីផ្សារអចលនវត្ថុនិងស្តង់ដារបច្ចេកទេសនៃការវិតម្លៃអចលនវត្ថុក្នុងតំបន់អាស៊ានក្នុងបរិយាកាសនៃការឆ្លងរាលដាលជំងឺ COVID-19 ពិសេសចូលរួមចំណែកដល់ការរក្សានិរន្តរភាពនៃសកម្មភាពទីផ្សារអចលនវត្ថុនៅក្នុងតំបន់ខ្ញុំជឿជាក់ថាប្រធានបទដែលនឹងត្រូវបានលើកយកមកពិភាក្សានាថ្ងៃនេះពិតជាសមស្របនិងមានសារៈសំខាន់សម្រាប់អង្គសមាជទាំងមូលអាចចែករំលែកបទពិសោធន៍ឬការអនុវត្តភារកិច្ចក្នុងឆ្នាំកន្លងមកទន្ទឹមនេះអង្គសមាជក៏គួរពិនិត្យទៅលើបណ្ដាបញ្ហាប្រឈមនិងកាលានុវត្តភាពដើម្បីរួមគ្នារិះរកនៅវិធានការល្អៗនិងថ្មីសម្ដៅកែលម្អបរិយាកាសផ្ដល់សេវាកម្មក្នុងទីផ្សារអចលនវត្ថុគ្នាទៅវិញទៅមកសម្ដៅពង្រឹងគុណភាពនិងលើកកម្ពស់វិជ្ជាជីវៈនេះឲ្យកាន់តែទទួលបាននៅជំនឿទុកចិត្តពីសាធារណជនបន្ថែមទៀតដើម្បីទទួលបាននៅកិត្យានុភាពនិងធានាបាននៅការប្រកួតប្រជែងជាមួយបណ្ដាដៃគូដែលប្រកបធុរកិច្ចដូចគ្នានៅក្នុងតំបន់ជាមួយគ្នានេះដែរខ្ញុំសង្ឃឹមយ៉ាងមុតមាំថានៅពេលដែលសាធារណជនកាន់តែមានជំនឿទុកចិត្តចំពោះគុណភាពនៃការផ្ដល់សេវាកម្មរបស់អ្នកវិតម្លៃអចលនវត្ថុគឺមានន័យថាអ្នកប្រកបវិជ្ជាជីវៈក្នុងវិស័យនេះនឹងមានតួនាទីកាន់តែសំខាន់នៅក្នុងទីផ្សារអចលនវត្ថុទាំងនៅក្នុងប្រទេសរបស់ខ្លួននិងទាំងនៅក្នុងតំបន់អាស៊ានទាំងមូលហើយការប្រើប្រាស់សេវាកម្មវិតម្លៃក៏កាន់តែមានការរីកចម្រើនឡើងថែមទៀតឯកឧត្តមលោកជំទាវអ្នកអង្គការលោកអង្គការលោកស្រីក្នុងរយៈពេលជិត2ឆ្នាំកន្លងទៅគិតចាប់តាំងពីដើមឆ្នាំ2020មកទល់បច្ចុប្បន្នពិភពលោកទាំងមូលបានជួបប្រទះនឹងវិបត្តិសុខភាពសាធារណៈជាសកលតែបណ្ដាលមកពីការរីករាលដាលយ៉ាងឆាប់រហ័សនៃជំងឺ COVID-19 ជំងឺនេះមិនត្រឹមតែបានបង្កការគំរាម ដល់សុខភាពនិងអាយុជីវិតរបស់យើងប៉ុណ្ណោះទេប៉ុន្តែថែមទាំងនាំមកនូវផលប៉ះពាល់ធ្ងន់ធ្ងរដល់សេដ្ឋកិច្ចនិងសង្គមទាំងមូលដែលមិនធ្លាប់មានពីមុនមកយោងតាមតួលេខបច្ចុប្បន្នកម្មថ្មីនេះចំនួនករណីអ្នកឆ្លងសរុបទូទាំងសកលលោកបានកើនឡើងលើស257លាននាក់និងចំនួនអ្នកស្លាប់មានជាង 5.1 លាននាក់ក្នុងឆ្នាំ2020និង2021ប្រទេសជាច្រើនក្នុងពិភពលោកបាននិងកំពុងបន្តការបិទប្រទេសការបិទទីក្រុងការរឹតបន្តឹងការធ្វើដំណើរនិងការដាក់ចេញនៅវិធានការចាំបាច់មួយចំនួនទៀតសម្ដៅទប់ស្កាត់ការរីករាលដាលនៃជំងឺ COVID-19 ជាលទ្ធផលវិធានការទាំងនេះបានបន្ថែមសម្ពាធនិងបង្អាក់សកម្មភាពផលិតកម្មការផ្គត់ផ្គង់ការប្រើប្រាស់និងការវិនិយោគដែលបានរុញច្រានកំណើនសេដ្ឋកិច្ចសកលនៅក្នុងឆ្នាំ2020ឲ្យធ្លាក់ចុះយ៉ាងគំហុកក្នុងអត្រាដក 3.1% ខណៈដែលកំណើនសេដ្ឋកិច្ចក្នុងតំបន់អាស៊ានបានថយចុះដល់ទៅដក 3.3% ជាមួយគ្នានេះសេដ្ឋកិច្ចកម្ពុជាក្នុងឆ្នាំ2020ក៏បានធ្លាក់ចុះក្នុងអត្រាដក 3.1% ផងដែរទោះជាយ៉ាងនេះក្តីក្នុងគោលដៅស្ដារនិងជំរុញកំណើនសេដ្ឋកិច្ចព្រមទាំងលើកកម្ពស់សុខុមាលភាពសង្គមឡើងវិញក្នុងក្របខ័ណ្ឌសកលនិងតំបន់ការកើនឡើងនៃការចែកចាយនិងការចាក់វ៉ាក់សាំងយ៉ាងទូលំទូលាយគឺជាគន្លឹះដ៏សំខាន់មួយក្នុងការទប់ទល់នឹងការសម្របខ្លួនទៅនឹងបរិបទថ្មីនៃជំងឺ COVID-19 តាមការព្យាករណ៍ក្នុងឆ្នាំ2021និងឆ្នាំ2022សេដ្ឋកិច្ចសកលត្រូវបានរំពឹងថានឹងងើបឡើងវិញក្នុងអត្រាកំណើន 5.9% និង 4.9% រៀងគ្នាក្នុងនោះកំណើនសេដ្ឋកិច្ចនៃបណ្ដាប្រទេសជាដៃគូពាណិជ្ជកម្មនិងវិនិយោគសំខាន់របស់កម្ពុជាត្រូវបានរំពឹងថានឹងងើបឡើងវិញរួមមានសហរដ្ឋអាមេរិកក្នុងអត្រា 6% និង 5.2% និងតំបន់ចាយប្រាក់អឺរ៉ូក្នុងអត្រា 5% និង 4.3% ក្នុងឆ្នាំ2021និង2022រៀងគ្នាដោយឡែកសេដ្ឋកិច្ចចិនត្រូវបានព្យាករណ៍ថានឹងបន្តកំណើនខ្ពស់ក្នុងអត្រា 8% និង 5.6% និងតំបន់អាស៊ានក្នុងអត្រា 2.7% និង 5.8% នៅក្នុងឆ្នាំ2021និង2022រៀងគ្នាដោយឡែកស្របទៅនឹងនិន្នាការសកលសេដ្ឋកិច្ចកម្ពុជាក្នុងឆ្នាំ2021ត្រូវបានព្យាករណ៍ថានឹងងើបឡើងវិញក្នុងកំណើនទាបប្រមាណ 2.4% ដោយសារការអូសបន្លាយនៃជំងឺ COVID-19 និងការរំពឹងទុកនៅការងើបឡើងវិញក្នុងកម្រិតយឺតនៃតម្រូវការសកលជាមួយនឹងការបន្ធូរបន្ថយនៅវិធានការរដ្ឋបាលជាដំណាក់និងការសម្របខ្លួនទៅនឹងគន្លងប្រក្រតីភាពថ្មីនៃកិច្ចដំណើរការសង្គមសេដ្ឋកិច្ចនៅក្នុងឆ្នាំ2022សេដ្ឋកិច្ចកម្ពុជាត្រូវបានរំពឹងថានឹងសម្រេចបានកំណើនក្នុងរង្វង់ 4.8% ដោយសារការបន្តងើបឡើងវិញនៃសកម្មភាពសេដ្ឋកិច្ចក្នុងស្រុកនិងសកលជាមួយគ្នានេះអនុវិស័យអចលនវត្ថុនៅកម្ពុជាត្រូវបានព្យាករណ៍ថានឹងងើបឡើងវិញក្នុងកំណើនទាប 2.4% ក្នុងឆ្នាំ2021និង 4.8% ក្នុងឆ្នាំ2022ដោយសារការកើនឡើងសន្សឹមនៃលំហូរទុនវិនិយោគពីបរទេសខណៈការវិនិយោគនិងតម្រូវការក្នុងស្រុកលើវិស័យអចលនវត្ថុដែលមានតម្លៃទាបនិងមធ្យម និងបន្តរក្សាកំណើនល្អប្រសើរយ៉ាងណាក៏ដោយខ្ញុំសូមគូបញ្ជាក់ថាការព្យាករណ៍ទាំងអស់នេះស្ថិតក្នុងភាពជាការប៉ាន់ស្មាននៅឡើយដោយសារហានិភ័យពីរលកថ្មីនៃការបំផ្លែងខ្លួនថ្មីនៃវីរុស 19 ដែលមានសភាពកាន់តែកាចសាហាវនៅតែបន្តជាបញ្ហាប្រឈមសម្រាប់ការអភិវឌ្ឍក្នុងសកលលោកនិងតំបន់ជាក់ស្ដែងមេរោគបំផ្លែងថ្មីនេះបាននឹងកំពុងធ្វើឲ្យប្រទេសមួយចំនួនក្នុងតំបន់អាស៊ីដែលធ្លាប់តែគ្រប់គ្រងករណីឆ្លងបានល្អคล้ายជាតំបន់ក្តៅគគុកនៃការឆ្លងរីករាលដាលជំងឺ COVID-19 ឯកឧត្តមលោកជំទាវអ្នកអង្គការលោកអង្គការលោកស្រីកម្ពុជាក្រោមការដឹកនាំដ៏ឈ្លាសវៃប្រកបដោយគតិបណ្ឌិតនិងស្មារតីប្រុងប្រយ័ត្នខ្ពស់របស់សម្ដេចអគ្គមហាសេនាបតីតេជោហ៊ុនសែននាយករដ្ឋមន្ត្រីនៃប្រជាជាតិចក្រកម្ពុជាបានដាក់ចេញនូវវិធានការអន្តរាគមន៍ប្រកបដោយប្រសិទ្ធភាពខ្ពស់ចំនួន10ជុំរួចមកហើយសម្ដៅជួយរក្សាលំនឹងធុរកិច្ចនិងជីវភាពរស់នៅរបស់ប្រជាពលរដ្ឋជាពិសេសកម្មករនិយោជិតនិងគ្រួសារក្រីក្រព្រមទាំងជនងាយរងគ្រោះដែលទទួលរងផលប៉ះពាល់ពីវិបត្តិជំងឺ COVID-19 ពាក់ព័ន្ធនឹងការប្រយុទ្ធនឹងជំងឺ COVID-19 រាជរដ្ឋាភិបាលកម្ពុជាបានកំណត់យកការចាក់វ៉ាក់សាំងជាវិធានការគន្លឹះបន្ថែមលើវិធានការសំខាន់ដទៃទៀតដើម្បីទប់ស្កាត់ការឆ្លងរាលដាលនៃជំងឺ COVID-19 ការពារសុខភាពសាធារណៈនិងជួយសង្គ្រោះអាយុជីវិតប្រជាជនគិតមកត្រឹមថ្ងៃនេះប្រជាជនកម្ពុជាដែលមានអាយុ5ឆ្នាំឡើងបានទទួលការចាក់វ៉ាក់សាំងបង្ការជំងឺ COVID-19 ប្រមាណ 88% ក្នុងចំណោមប្រជាជនក្នុងប្រទេសសរុបចំនួនប្រមាណ 16 លាននាក់ពេលនេះកម្ពុជាបានបើកដំណើរការសកម្មភាពសង្គមសេដ្ឋកិច្ចទាំងអស់ឡើងវិញជាធម្មតារួមទាំងវិស័យទេសចរណ៍ផងដែរហើយឧត្តមលោកជំទាវអ្នកអង្គការលោកអង្គការលោកស្រីទោះបីជាយើងនៅប្រឈមនឹងភាពមិនប្រកបប្រជាខ្ពស់ក៏ដោយខ្ញុំយល់ថាតំបន់អាស៊ាននឹងនៅតែមានសក្តានុពលនិងដើរតួនាទីយ៉ាងសំខាន់ក្នុងការស្ដារនិងជំរុញកំណើនសេដ្ឋកិច្ចឲ្យងើបឡើងវិញក្រោយវិបត្តិជំងឺ COVID-19 ជាមួយនឹងការអភិវឌ្ឍសង្គមសេដ្ឋកិច្ចប្រកបដោយចីរភាពនិងបរិយាបន្នក្នុងបរិការនេះរាជរដ្ឋាភិបាលកម្ពុជាប្រកាន់យកនៅទស្សនវិជ្ជានៃការខិតខំប្រែក្លាយវិបត្តិចំពោះមុខឲ្យទៅជាកាលានុវត្តភាពសម្រាប់ជំរុញកិច្ចការកែតម្រង់ឲ្យកាន់តែស៊ីជម្រៅសម្ដៅកសាងប្រព័ន្ធសេដ្ឋកិច្ចនិងសង្គមឲ្យកាន់តែរឹងមាំនិងមានភាពធន់ទៅនឹងវិបត្តិនាអនាគតក្នុងស្មារតីនេះរាជរដ្ឋាភិបាលកំពុងរៀបចំដាក់ចេញក្នុងពេលឆាប់ខាងមុខនៅក្របខ័ណ្ឌយុទ្ធសាស្ត្រនិងកម្មវិធីស្ដារនិងជំរុញកំណើនសេដ្ឋកិច្ចកម្ពុជាក្នុងការរស់នៅជាមួយ COVID-19 តាមគន្លងប្រក្រតីភាពថ្មីសម្រាប់ឆ្នាំ 2021-2023 ក្នុងគោលបំណងជំរុញកំណើនសេដ្ឋកិច្ចឲ្យងើបឡើងវិញខិតទៅជិតកំណើនជាសក្តានុពលប្រកបដោយចីរភាពភាពធន់និងបរិយាបន្នតាមរយៈការលើកកម្ពស់ភាពប្រកួតប្រជែងនិងការជំរុញការធ្វើពិពិធកម្មមូលដ្ឋានសេដ្ឋកិច្ចជាពិសេសលើមូលដ្ឋានឧស្សាហកម្មរឹងមាំដែលមានសមត្ថភាពនាំចេញខ្ពស់និងផ្សារភ្ជាប់កាន់តែខ្លាំងក្លាជាមួយខ្សែច្រវាក់ផ្គត់ផ្គង់តំបន់និងពិភពលោកក្របខ័ណ្ឌយុទ្ធសាស្ត្រនេះនឹងពឹងផ្អែកលើសសរស្តម្ភចំនួន3ឬ 3Rs រួមមាន 1. ការស្ដារ recovery ដែលផ្ដោតលើការស្ដារឡើងវិញនៅវិស័យសំខាន់ ជាជំទល់ទ្រទ្រង់កំណើនសេដ្ឋកិច្ចនៅមុនវិបត្តិជំងឺ COVID-19 2. ការកែតម្រង់ reform ដែលផ្ដោតលើការបន្តកិច្ចការកែតម្រង់សំខាន់ៗជារចនាសម្ព័ន្ធរួមមានជាអាចការបើកទីផ្សារតាមរយៈការពង្រីកការចូលរួមក្នុងបណ្ដាញនៃកិច្ចព្រមព្រៀងពាណិជ្ជកម្មសេរីទ្វេភាគីនិងពហុភាគីការធ្វើឲ្យប្រសើរឡើងនៅបរិយាកាសសម្រាប់ការវិនិយោគការសម្រួលពាណិជ្ជកម្មនិងការផ្ដល់សេវាកាន់តែប្រសើរឡើងសម្រាប់សកម្មភាពធុរកិច្ចនិង3ការពង្រឹងភាពធន់ resiliency ដែលផ្ដោតទៅលើការអភិវឌ្ឍថាមពលបៃតងការអភិវឌ្ឍហេដ្ឋារចនាសម្ព័ន្ធឆ្លើយតបនឹងការផ្លាស់ប្ដូរអាកាសធាតុការជំរុញការអភិវឌ្ឍ digital លោកពាណិជ្ជកម្មក្នុងប្រព័ន្ធសេដ្ឋកិច្ចការអភិវឌ្ឍជំនាញព្រមទាំងការពង្រឹងការត្រៀមខ្លួនឆ្លើយតបទៅនឹងវិបត្តិនានាឬស្ថានភាពស្រដៀងគ្នាដែលអាចផ្ទុះឡើងនាអនាគតទាំងក្នុងទិដ្ឋភាពសង្គមនិងសេដ្ឋកិច្ចដោយឡែកដើម្បីសម្របខ្លួនទៅនឹងនិន្នាការថ្មីនិងឆ្លើយតបទៅនឹងតម្រូវការចាំបាច់ជាក់ស្ដែងចំពោះមុខរាជរដ្ឋាភិបាលក៏បានដាក់ចេញនូវគោលនយោបាយនិងអនុវត្តកិច្ចការកែតម្រង់ស្ថាប័នមួយចំនួនទៀតរួមមានជាអាច 1. ក្របខ័ណ្ឌគោលនយោបាយសេដ្ឋកិច្ចនិងសង្គម Digital កម្ពុជា 2021-2035 ដែលផ្ដោតលើការបង្កើនល្បឿន Digital លោកពាណិជ្ជកម្មនិងបរិវត្តកម្ម Digital សម្ដៅទាញយកអត្ថប្រយោជន៍ជាអតិបរមាពីការវិវត្តយ៉ាងលឿននៃបច្ចេកវិទ្យានេះនិង 2. ច្បាប់ស្ដីពីការរៀបចំនិងការប្រព្រឹត្តទៅនៃអាជ្ញាធរសេវាហិរញ្ញវត្ថុមិនមែនធនាគារដើម្បីបង្កើតអាជ្ញាធរសេវាហិរញ្ញវត្ថុមិនមែនធនាគារដែលមានតួនាទីនិងភារកិច្ចគ្រប់គ្រងនិងត្រួតពិនិត្យលើវិស័យធានារ៉ាប់រងនិងសោធនឯកជនវិស័យមូលបត្រវិស័យសន្តិសុខសង្គមវិស័យបរិធនបាលកិច្ចវិស័យគណនេយ្យនិងសវនកម្មនិងវិស័យអចលនវត្ថុនិងបញ្ចាំក្នុងគោលដៅពង្រឹងនិងពង្រីកវិសាលភាពនៃការអភិវឌ្ឍវិស័យហិរញ្ញវត្ថុមិនមែនធនាគារឲ្យក្លាយជាសសរស្តម្ភដ៏រឹងមាំសម្រាប់គាំទ្រដល់ការជំរុញកំណើនសេដ្ឋកិច្ចឯកឧត្តមលោកជំទាវអ្នកអង្គការលោកអង្គការលោកស្រីខ្ញុំពិតជាមានសេចក្តីរីករាយដោយសមាគមអ្នកវាយតម្លៃនិងភ្នាក់ងារអចលនវត្ថុកម្ពុជាបានទទួលបំពេញតួនាទីជាម្ចាស់ផ្ទះនៃកម្មវិធីដ៏មានសារៈសំខាន់នេះអ្នកវាយតម្លៃអចលនវត្ថុដើរតួនាទីយ៉ាងសំខាន់ក្នុងការអភិវឌ្ឍវិស័យអចលនវត្ថុនៅក្នុងប្រទេសនិងតំបន់ខ្ញុំសង្ឃឹមថាតាមរយៈយន្តការនៃសមាជអ្នកវាយតម្លៃអចលនវត្ថុអាស៊ាននេះកិច្ចសហប្រតិបត្តិការសិក្សាស្វែងយល់និងការផ្លាស់ប្ដូរបទពិសោធន៍ក្នុងចំណោមអ្នកចូលរួមនឹងអាចក្លាយជាធាតុចូលដ៏សំខាន់សម្រាប់ការរៀបចំច្បាប់បទបញ្ញត្តិនិងគោលនយោបាយពាក់ព័ន្ធនឹងវិស័យអចលនវត្ថុនៅក្នុងប្រទេសសមាជិកទាំងអស់ពិសេសនៅកម្ពុជាផ្ទាល់តែម្ដងក្នុងន័យនេះដើម្បីជំរុញការអភិវឌ្ឍវិស័យអចលនវត្ថុប្រកបដោយចីរភាពស្ថិរភាពប្រសិទ្ធភាពនិងស័ក្តិសិទ្ធិភាពខ្ញុំស្នើអង្គសមាជពិនិត្យលទ្ធភាពក្នុងការគិតគូរនិងផ្ដល់យោបល់លើចំណុចសំខាន់មួយចំនួនដូចខាងក្រោម 1. រៀបចំស្តង់ដារអ្នកវាយតម្លៃអចលនវត្ថុរួមមួយក្នុងក្របខ័ណ្ឌតំបន់អាស៊ាន 2. សម្រាប់ប្រទេសដែលមិនទាន់មានស្តង់ដារវាយតម្លៃអចលនវត្ថុដូចជាកម្ពុជាគួររៀបចំស្តង់ដារវាយតម្លៃអចលនវត្ថុនេះឡើងឲ្យបានឆាប់ 3. ជំរុញលើកកម្ពស់ការងារពង្រឹងសមត្ថភាពវិជ្ជាជីវៈនិងគុណវុឌ្ឍិអ្នកវាយតម្លៃអចលនវត្ថុឲ្យកាន់តែប្រសើរនិង 4. ពង្រឹងកិច្ចសហប្រតិបត្តិការរវាងឯកជននិងឯកជននិងនិយត្តករនិងរវាងនិយត្តករនិងនិយត្តករផងដែរតាមរយៈការផ្លាស់ប្ដូរជំនាញនិងបទពិសោធន៍បច្ចេកវិទ្យាការវិនិយោគនិងអាជីវកម្មរួមគ្នាខ្ញុំក៏សូមយកឱកាសនេះជម្រាបជូនអង្គសមាជជ្រាបផងដែរថាទោះបីជាកម្ពុជាកំពុងប្រឈមនឹងជំងឺ Covid-19 និងបន្តសម្របខ្លួនទៅនឹងប្រក្រតីភាពថ្មីក្តីក៏ប៉ុន្តែវិស័យអចលនវត្ថុក្នុងប្រទេសនៅតែមានសក្តានុពលខ្ពស់និងមានតម្លៃទាបសមរម្យសម្រាប់ការវិនិយោគបើប្រៀបធៀបនឹងប្រទេសជិតខាងក្នុងនោះរួមមានតំបន់សំខាន់មួយចំនួនដូចជា1រាជធានីភ្នំពេញនិងខេត្តកណ្ដាលដែលគម្រោងសាងសង់អាកាសយានដ្ឋានថ្មីកំពុងតែត្រូវបានអនុវត្ត2ខេត្តព្រះសីហនុដែលកំពុងតែត្រូវបានប្រែក្លាយជាតំបន់សេដ្ឋកិច្ចពិសេសពហុបំណង3ខេត្តសៀមរាបដែលជាតំបន់ទេសចរប្រវត្តិសាស្ត្រនិង4ក្រុងបាវិតដែលជាមាត់ច្រកព្រំដែនកម្ពុជាវៀតណាមនិងក្រុងប៉ោយប៉ែតដែលជាមាត់ច្រកព្រំដែនកម្ពុជាថៃនៅចុងបញ្ចប់ខ្ញុំសូមជូនពរដល់អង្គសមាជលើកទី23របស់សមាគមអ្នកវាយតម្លៃអាស៊ានប្រព្រឹត្តទៅប្រកបដោយជោគជ័យតាមការរំពឹងទុកនិងសូមជូនពរឯកឧត្តមលោកជំទាវអ្នកអង្គការលោកអង្គការលោកស្រីប្រកបដោយសុខភាពល្អសម្រាប់បានជោគជ័យក្នុងគ្រប់ភារកិច្ចនិងទទួលបាននៅវិបុលភាពនិងសុភមង្គលក្នុងក្រុមគ្រួសាររៀងៗខ្លួនជាពិសេសសូមជៀសវាងផុតពីជំងឺ Covid-19 ក្នុងនាមគណៈអធិបតីខ្ញុំសូមប្រកាសបើកអង្គសមាជលើកទី23របស់សមាគមអ្នកវាយតម្លៃអាស៊ានចាប់ពីពេលនេះតទៅសូមអរគុណ
Minister of Economy and Finance, thank you so much for your welcome remarks.
សូមថ្លែងអំណរគុណដល់ជ្រាលជ្រៅទៅដល់អាដាមអគ្គមណ្ឌិតសភាចាអូនពាន់នីរដ្ឋឧបនាយករដ្ឋមន្ត្រីក្រសួងសេដ្ឋកិច្ចនិងហិរញ្ញវត្ថុនៃព្រះរាជាណាចក្រកម្ពុជាសម្រាប់សន្ទរកថាគន្លឹះដ៏មានតម្លៃនៅក្នុងអង្គពិធីនេះ
Chief of Delegates for now from our technical team here in Cambodia, we would like to ask every one of you, especially all the speakers, could you please kindly turn on your video camera or your webcam because we would like to capture the very special moment of all of you. And please give us nothing but your smiles. Thank you.
អាដាមលោកជំទាវលោកស្រីនៅនាងកញ្ញាមុននឹងទៅកាន់វគ្គបន្តទៀតស្ដីពីរបាយការណ៍ប្រចាំប្រទេសដែលសមាជិកនីមួយៗនឹងត្រូវរាយការណ៍យើងខ្ញុំសូមអនុញ្ញាតអាដាមលោកជំទាវដែលជាវាគ្មិននិងគណៈប្រតិភូប្រធានគណៈប្រតិភូទាំងអស់មេតាបើកកាមេរ៉ាឬក៏ webcam ដើម្បីឲ្យក្រុមការងារបច្ចេកទេសរបស់យើងអាចអនុញ្ញាតថតរូបទុកជាអនុស្សាវរីយ៍សូមផ្ដល់ក្តីញញឹមមកកាន់យើងទាំងអស់គ្នា
So once again, ladies and gentlemen, before we proceed to the next session, please kindly let us see your face and give us your smile. Thank you.
បាទសូមបើកកាមេរ៉ាបើក webcam ទាំងអស់គ្នាសម្រាប់ក្រុមការងារបច្ចេកទេសក្នុងការផ្ដិតរូបភាពទុកជាអនុស្សាវរីយ៍
And for our technical team here, when you are ready, please let us know. I kind of see some of our speakers has already turned on their webcam. Thank you so much. And we still expect some more, please.
បាទយើងបានឃើញគណៈប្រតិភូវាគ្មិនទាំងអស់បានបើកកាមេរ៉ារួចហើយឥឡូវនេះក្រុមការងារបច្ចេកទេសរបស់យើងក៏បានផ្ដិតយករូបភាពរួចរាល់ហើយដែរបាទ
Thank you everyone.
អរគុណជាច្រើន
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we would also like to take this opportunity to introduce to you our main sponsors, which mean that today Congress is sponsored by VTrust Appraisals as Indication Plus, Luxury Holiday Villas, Forest Harmony and Golf Harmony, the first and biggest holiday villas project in Kampot, Cambodia. Thank you.
អាដាមលោកជំទាវកម្មវិធីនេះមិនអាចអវត្តមានសម្រាប់ម្ចាស់ឧបត្ថម្ភកម្មវិធីបានទេយើងសូមថ្លែងអំណរគុណទៅដល់ក្រុមហ៊ុន VTrust Appraisal ដែលជាក្រុមហ៊ុនវាយតម្លៃអចលនវត្ថុនៅក្នុងព្រះរាជាណាចក្រកម្ពុជាដោយប្រើប្រាស់ប្រព័ន្ធបច្ចេកវិទ្យា Digital Indication Plus និងសូមថ្លែងអំណរគុណទៅដល់ម្ចាស់ឧបត្ថម្ភកម្មវិធីផ្ទះវិឡាលំហែកាយបែបអឺរ៉ុប Forest Harmony នាខេត្តកំពត
Thank you. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let us now begin our report on economic and property updates. So today with us, we're going to introduce to you our first speaker from Brunei, Mr. Iqbal bin Haji Mohammed Taufik, Valuation Officer, Land Department, Ministry of Development from Brunei. Once again, good morning, Brunei.
អាដាមលោកជំទាវលោកស្រីនិងនាងកញ្ញាជាបន្តទៅទៀតនេះយើងខ្ញុំសូមអនុញ្ញាតអង្គវិធីទាំងមូលស្ដាប់របាយការណ៍ស្ដីពីវឌ្ឍនភាពសេដ្ឋកិច្ចនិងទីផ្សារអចលនទ្រព្យពីប្រទេសជាសមាជិកជាបឋមសូមស្វាគមន៍បទបង្ហាញរបស់លោក Iqbal bin Haji Mohammed Taufik តំណាងក្រសួងអភិវឌ្ឍន៍នៃព្រះរាជាណាចក្រ Brunei Darussalam.
Good morning. Good morning, AVA President, the Secretary General, Chief Delegates, fellow ASEAN members, and those who are joining us virtually from all around the world. Without wasting any more time, let's proceed with the presentation. Brunei's economy slowed in 2020 due to weak external demand, low commodity prices, and the impact of domestic containment measures. In the third quarter of 2020, GDP growth moderated to 0.5% year-on-year, after robust growth of 2.7% in the first half. On a quarter-on-quarter basis, the economy contracted by 2.7% in Q3, despite the COVID-19 outbreak and public health measures that restricted economic activity. Growth remained robust in the first half of 2020, with the downstream sector contributing 5 percentage points of GDP growth. Growth has been largely supported by the downstream oil and gas sector, particularly in the production and exports of refined petroleum and petrochemical products. Crude oil and liquefied natural gas exports, on the other hand, have been hampered by domestic production disruptions, as well as weak demand and prices. Inflation surged in the first half of 2020, but moderated in the third quarter. Consumer prices rose significantly in the first half of 2020 due to a marked depreciation of the exchange rate and shortages of certain imported items caused by the global supply chain disruptions. The Brunei dollar has gradually regained strength against the US dollar since May. The trade balance fell into deficit in the third quarter of 2020. travel restrictions enforced worldwide led to lower demand for jet fuel, diesel, and gasoline. The global aromatics markets has also been affected as manufacturing activity slowed. Meanwhile, imports of mineral fuels used as feedstock for the production of refined and petrochemicals products surged. For the tourism industry, tourist arrivals to Brunei, which has been trending upwards by more than 70% in March 2020 year on year. The hotel subsector declined by 12.3% in Q3 2020 after a sharp contraction of 21.5% in first half of 2020. Hotel occupancy rates dropped to 18.3% in June 2020, but recovered partially, helped by staycation promotions. In Q3, the retail, trade, and telecommunications subsector grew 3.7% and 23.9% year-on-year respectively. This reflected the impact of public health interventions, including school closures, work from home arrangements. Residential electricity use increased about 10% year-on-year from March to May. Online transactions for banking services and retail purchases have also increased, partly due to temporary fee waivers. Domestic lending fell sharply in the third quarter of 2020 due to a decline in credit to households, particularly in personal loans financing. Credit to businesses has been more robust, although lending to certain sectors saw large declines. Demand deposits continue to surge, which may reflect pandemic-induced precautionary saving, spending cutbacks, and preference for holding cash to avoid liquidity shortfalls. Deposit rates have also fallen to record lows. Domestic interest rates fall to record lows in Q3, mirroring the developments in Singapore. Interest rates are expected to remain low for some time, given the continued accommodative monetary policy of major central banks to support economic recovery. The negative Q1 growth in 2021 was largely due to a contraction in oil and gas mining, manufacturing of LNG, and construction, which reduced by 16.6%. Crude oil production fell to 114.9 thousand barrels per day to 112,000 barrels per day, while LNG production decreased by 11.4%. The decline in the upstream oil and gas sector was attributed to unanticipated production disruptions, while the slump in construction was due to limited availability of migrant workers and shortage of raw materials amid border closures. On the other hand, strong growth was recorded in the downstream oil and gas sector, particularly manufacturing of petroleum and chemical products, as well as in agriculture, retail trade, restaurants, health services, and business services. Brunei's fiscal deficit narrowed slightly in Q1 on the back of higher oil and gas receipts and tax revenue, despite an increase in spending. Oil prices have recovered strongly from last April's troughs, with Brent averaging $60.60 per barrel in Q2. Brunei's fiscal deficit is projected to narrow in 2021, primarily driven by higher oil prices and gas revenue. The Residential Property Price Index is published by the Brunei Darussalam Central Bank, or BDCB. The index is compiled by using data sourced from banks in Brunei Darussalam. It is published in cooperation with the Authority of Building Control and Construction Industry, ABCI. In Q1 of 2021, the RPPI showed an increase of 1.9% year-on-year compared to Q1 2020, an increase of 2.5% quarter-on-quarter compared to Q4 of 2020. This is the year-on-year and the quarter-on-quarter price change. Based on the mortgage data obtained from banks, the majority of these transactions were for detached houses, which is 63%, followed by semi-detached houses, 21%, terrace houses, 8%, and apartments at 8%. These are the median prices of 4 property types in Brunei based on BDCB's findings. It needs to be said that this is a more generalized view of the property market, as it probably does not take into account core factors such as location, fixtures and finishes, and floor area. The second wave of COVID-19 that hit Brunei in August 2021 does not seem to have any resounding effect on the property market. Property prices generally have remained stable. It also seems that the property developers have substantial profit margins to absorb the rising cost of raw materials, disruption in the supply chain, and labor shortages. It can be said that the residential property market continues to be overpriced, and the trend of vacant residential properties continues. With that, I end my presentation. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Iqbal bin Haji Muhammad Taufik of Brunei for your report.
សូមថ្លែងអំណរគុណតំណាងពីប្រទេសព្រះរាជាណាចក្រ Brunei Darussalam សម្រាប់របាយការណ៍ប្រចាំប្រទេសរបស់ខ្លួន
Ladies and gentlemen, please allow us now to introduce to you our next speaker, Mr. Son Siep, the Executive Vice President of CVEA. Good morning, sir.
ជាបន្តទៀតសូមស្វាគមន៍របាយការណ៍ប្រចាំប្រទេសរបស់ព្រះរាជាណាចក្រកម្ពុជាស្ដីពីវឌ្ឍនភាពសេដ្ឋកិច្ចនិងទីផ្សារអចលនទ្រព្យដែលបង្ហាញដោយលោកសុនសៀបអនុប្រធានសមាគមអ្នកវិតម្លៃនិងទីភ្នាក់ងារអចលនវត្ថុកម្ពុជា
Good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my presentation about economic and property updates of Cambodia. Again, my name is Son Siep. I'm the Executive Vice President of Cambodian Valuers and Estate Agent Association. My skill is in property valuation and property investment. Today, I have 4 points to share in my presentation: the GDP growth of Cambodia, total values of approved development projects, property market, infrastructure development projects. Cambodia is located in the center of ASEAN with a GDP growth averagely around 7% before the COVID-19. During the COVID-19, unfortunately, the GDP growth is minus 3.1% and predicted to be growth by ADB around 1.9% in 2021 and continue to grow by 5.5% during 2022. The total values of approved
តម្លៃ
construction
សរុបយើងបានទទួលអត្រាខ្ពស់មែនទែននៅកិច្ចសន្យានៃការសាងសង់ច្រើនភាគរយហើយនៅឆ្នាំ2019នោះមានការកើនឡើងមែនទែនយើងរហូតដល់មានកំណើនឡើង 119.2%
Moving to property market
តកតងទៅនឹងទីផ្សារនេះ
average land values of
ទីផ្សារនៅភ្នំពេញមានស្រុកទាំងអស់14បទបង្ហាញរបស់ខ្ញុំនៅថ្ងៃនេះយើងបដោតជាសំខាន់ទៅលើតែខណ្ឌទាំង5នៅក្នុងស្រុកទេដែលតម្លៃដីប្រហែលជា$4,000ក្នុង1ម៉ែត្រការ៉េហើយកត្រាកំណើនឡើងប្រហែលជា 3% យើងតម្លៃអំពីកាយឡៃនៅទីក្រុងភ្នំពេញវិញកម្រិត A នេះប្រហែលអាចប្រហែលជា$60,000ក្នុង$60,000ក្នុង1ម៉ែត្រការ៉េហើយ C ណាដូច្នេះបើនិយាយពីចំនួនសរុបនៃការផ្គត់ផ្គង់នៅឆ្នាំ2020នេះគឺប្រហែលជា600,000ម៉ែត្រការ៉េហើយតម្រូវការនៅក្នុងត្រីមាសទី4នេះមានបញ្ហាប្រឈមតិចចំពោះទីកន្លែង office ដោយសារតែមានការកើនឡើងនៅCOVID យើងបានធ្វើការពីផ្ទះទៅអញ្ចឹងយើងអាចមានការនៅការលក់លំអិតនៅការលក់រាយតម្លៃប្រហែលជា$21ទៅ$24យើងឃើញថាការផ្គត់ផ្គង់ពីឆ្នាំ2020នេះប្រហែលជា400,000ម៉ែត្រការ៉េហើយការផ្គត់ផ្គង់នេះនឹងការកើនឡើងពីមួយឆ្នាំទៅមួយឆ្នាំហើយតម្រូវការក៏អញ្ចឹងដែរហើយស្ថានភាពនេះគឺអាចនៅតែមានផលប៉ះពាល់ដោយ COVID នៅឆ្នាំ2020នេះដដែលហើយតម្លៃលក់និងតម្លៃទិញនៅតាមអនឡាញតម្លៃ condo គឺប្រហែលជា1ម៉ែត្រការ៉េ$2,500ហើយតម្លៃមធ្យមពី$1,600 ទៅ$2,500ក្នុង1ម៉ែត្រការ៉េហើយតម្លៃសមរម្យជាងគេនោះពីគេគឺប្រហែលជា800ទៅ$1,500ម៉ែត្រការ៉េហើយការផ្គត់ផ្គង់នៅក្នុងឆ្នាំ2020នេះសរុបទៅប្រហែលជា2,000 បន្ទប់គេថា2,000 បន្ទប់2,000 ផ្ទះហើយនឹងមានការកើនឡើងពីមួយឆ្នាំទៅមួយឆ្នាំហើយតម្រូវការផ្នែកនឹង condo នេះគឺមានការជួបលំបាកមួយចំនួនព្រោះថាអ្នកសាងសង់ condo នោះក៏លក់ឲ្យបរទេសដោយសារមានការលំបាកធ្វើដំណើរក្នុង COVID នេះអញ្ចឹងជួបប្រទះមួយចំនួនដែលធ្វើឲ្យទីផ្សារ condo នោះមានការស្រុតចុះបាទ ចំពោះដីផ្ទះនេះយើងថាផ្ទះមួយល្វែងមកគិតទៅប្រហែលជាអាច 40,000 តម្លៃមធ្យមអាច 10,000 ទៅ 40,000 ហើយគេថាតម្លៃទីផ្សេងគេនោះអាចពី 40,000 ទៅ 10,000 ដូច្នេះការផ្គត់ផ្គង់ក្នុងឆ្នាំ 2020 នេះសរុបទៅដូចជាមានប្រហែលជា 6,000 ល្វែងសរុបទៅតាមការសង្កេតរបស់យើងឃើញថាមានតម្រូវការខ្លាំងមែនទែនតកតងទៅនឹងដីសម្រាប់សាងសង់ផ្ទះនេះពីព្រោះថានៅក្នុងឆ្នាំ 2020 នេះចំពោះតម្លៃទាបជាងគេនៅក្នុងស្រុកនេះចឹងឥឡូវយើងបន្តទៅនៅគម្រោងបរិយាហេដ្ឋារចនាសម្ព័ន្ធទៀតនៅទីក្រុង 3 សំខាន់ទី 1 នៅទីក្រុងភ្នំពេញទី 2 នៅសៀមរាបទី 2 នៅសីហនុវីលទី 3 នៅពោធិ៍សែនភ្នំពេញជារាជធានីនៃប្រទេសកម្ពុជាដែលយើងមានគម្រោងអភិវឌ្ឍរចនាហេដ្ឋារចនាសម្ព័ន្ធធំៗច្រើនមានដូចជាអាកាសយានថ្មីដែលមានទំហំជាច្រើនហិកតាហើយតម្លៃសរុបរាប់លានដុល្លារនៅទីនេះចម្រងធំមួយទៀតគឺផ្លូវមានល្បឿនលឿនពីភ្នំពេញទៅនេះប្រហែលជា 192 គីឡូម៉ែត្រហើយប្រហែលជាអស់ 2,000 លានដុល្លារហើយគម្រោងប្រហែលជាអាចចាប់សរុបនៅឆ្នាំ 2023 ហើយនឹងផ្លូវដែកអាស៊ានភ្ជាប់ផ្លូវដែកអាស៊ានពីភ្នំពេញទៅសមុទ្រទីក្រុងសីហនុហើយនឹងភ្ជាប់ពីប្រទេសកម្ពុជាទៅប្រទេសថៃហើយរដ្ឋាភិបាលក៏ចឹងដែរដើម្បីកសាងផ្លូវដែកមួយទៀតភ្ជាប់ពីភ្នំពេញទៅទីក្រុងហូជីមិញនៃប្រទេសវៀតណាមហើយយើងក៏បានធ្វើការសិក្សាស្ដីពីផ្លូវល្បឿនលឿនពីភ្នំពេញទៅបាវិតព្រំដែនវៀតណាមផងដែរប្រហែលជា 153 គីឡូម៉ែត្រហើយយើងមានគម្រោងអភិវឌ្ឍផ្សេងៗជាច្រើនទៀតដូចជាផ្លូវកបាត់ក្រុងទី 2ចប់ប្រហែលជា 70-75% ហើយរដ្ឋាភិបាលកំពុងតែរៀបចំសាងសង់ផ្លូវកបាត់ក្រុងមួយទៀតផ្លូវកបាត់ក្រុងទី 4 បើឥឡូវនេះយើងបន្តទៅមើលនៅទីក្រុងសីហនុវីលដែលខ្ញុំទើបបានបញ្ជាក់មុននេះបន្តិចគឺជាកំពង់ផែទឹកជ្រៅនៅរបស់កម្ពុជានេះគឺជាច្រកមួយដើម្បីសម្រាប់នាំចេញនិងនាំចូលនេះអារម្មណ៍សម្រាប់ប្រទេសរដ្ឋាភិបាលក៏បានចាត់ទុកថាទីនេះជាទីក្រុងសម្រាប់សម្បត្តិសេដ្ឋកិច្ចពិសេសសម្រាប់ពហុបំណងហើយដែលមានការលម្អហេដ្ឋារចនាសម្ព័ន្ធជាពិសេសនៅក្នុងសមុទ្រទឹកជ្រៅកំពង់ផែនៅសមុទ្រទឹកជ្រៅហើយនឹងពង្រីកបន្ថែមនៅអាកាសយានអន្តរជាតិហើយផ្លូវល្បឿនលឿនពីភ្នំពេញទៅដូចខ្ញុំបានរៀបជូនថានឹងបញ្ចប់ 2023 ហើយនឹងការជួសជុលផ្លូវតាមឆ្នេរដែលទាំងអស់នេះគឺសម្រាប់ប្រហែលជា 200 លានដុល្លារជាងដែលយើងបានបញ្ចប់កាលពីប្រហែលខែមុននេះទីក្រុងសីហនុនេះគឺថាមានសក្តានុពលខ្លាំងណាស់ហើយខ្ញុំជឿថាតាមរយៈស្ថានភាពបច្ចុប្បន្នហើយនឹងហេដ្ឋារចនាសម្ព័ន្ធកាលពីមុនហ្នឹងគម្រោងអភិវឌ្ឍទាំងនោះគឺថាអាចធ្វើឲ្យទីក្រុងសីហនុទៅជាមានសក្តានុពលខ្លាំងហើយខ្ញុំថាប្រហែលជា 5 ទៅ 10 ឆ្នាំទៀតសីហនុវីលនឹងក្លាយទៅជាទីក្រុងទំនើបនិងទីក្រុងវៃឆ្លាតមួយឥឡូវនេះយើងត្រឡប់ទៅមើលទីក្រុងសៀមរាបវិញគឺជាអតីតរាជធានីនៃរាជធានីខ្មែរគឺថាយើងបានធ្វើ សាងសង់ផ្លូវជួសជុលផ្លូវចំនួន38ហើយចំណាយទឹកប្រាក់អស់150លានហើយនឹងបញ្ចប់នៅឆ្នាំ2020ហើយគេនឹងរៀបចំបង្កើតសាងសង់នៅអាកាសយានដ្ឋានថ្មីមួយទៀតហើយប្រហែលជាបញ្ចប់ការងារនោះឆ្នាំ2020ហើយយើងឃើញថាធៀបរៀបនឹងខ្លាយទៅជាឬដៅទេសចរមួយយ៉ាងថ្មីនិងរឹងមាំសម្រាប់រាជាណាចក្រកម្ពុជាហើយនឹងឥឡូវនេះយើងហើយអីបានហៅថារចនាសម្ព័ន្ធសំខាន់ណាស់ដូចជាកំពង់ផែផ្លូវដែកហើយនឹងអាកាសយានដ្ឋានហើយដូច្នេះហើយប្រទេសរាជាណាចក្រកម្ពុជាកំពុងតែប្រឹងកែលម្អហើយក៏អាចហើយនឹងផ្ដល់ជាចង្វាក់ផ្គត់ផ្គង់ហើយនឹងការដឹកនាំទំនិញចេញនឹងចូលតាមរយៈព្រំដែនហើយនឹងធ្វើឲ្យសេដ្ឋកិច្ចរបស់យើងនៅតែរឹងមាំហើយទីផ្សារចំណាត់ក៏មានការកើនឡើងចឹងដែរដូច្នេះនៅដោយសារការខំប្រឹងប្រែងកែប្រែរចនាសម្ព័ន្ធនេះការកសាងថ្មីនិងការជួសជុលនេះកែលម្អនេះគឺជាទីផ្សាររបស់ប្រទេសកម្ពុជានៅតែមានសក្តានុពលចំពោះ COVID-19 អរគុណច្រើនដែលយកទៅដាក់ចំបត់មកហាញបាទសូមអរគុណច្រើនចំពោះការចិត្តទុកដាក់ស្ដាប់របស់លោក
Thank you, sir, for your report on the economic and property updates about our beautiful country, Cambodia. Thank you.
អាដាមលោកជំទាវអំបញ្ញមិញនេះគឺជាបទបង្ហាញរបស់លោកសុនសៀបដែលជាអនុប្រធានសមាគមអ្នកវិតម្លៃអចលនវត្ថុកម្ពុជា
Ladies and gentlemen, please join us in welcoming our next speaker from Indonesia, Mr. Harizul Akbar Naswa, Head of Research and Development.
Harizul បាទគឺជាប្រធានផ្នែកស្រាវជ្រាវអភិវឌ្ឍផ្នែកសមាគមវិតម្លៃអចលនវត្ថុរបស់ម៉ាឡេស៊ីបាទអរគុណបាទទៅដល់ MC សម្រាប់ឱកាសនេះបាទកថាអរុនសុស្ដីលោកស្រីទាំងអស់គ្នាបាទហើយបាទប្រហែលជាបាទមិនមានបញ្ហាទេបាទចំពោះបើទាំងបទបង្ហាញហើយសម្លេងខ្ញុំប្រហែលជាមានបញ្ហាទេអញ្ចឹងគឺថាបាទសូមគោរពបាទប្រធានAVAបាទហើយប្រធានគណៈប្រតិភូអាដាមលោកស្រីទាំងអស់បាទសម្រាប់ការផ្ដល់ឱកាសកបសានេះប៉ុណ្ណេះថាខ្ញុំរីករាយមែនទែនណាសម្រាប់ការចូលរួមជាមួយនឹងអាដាមលោកស្រីដើម្បីចែកភាសានិងចែករំលែកណាទោះបីជាយើងប្រជុំជាមួយនឹងបញ្ហាហើយនេះគឺជារបាយការណ៍របស់បាទឥណ្ឌូនេស៊ីនៅខ្ញុំឈ្មោះHarizul Akbar Naswaបាទប្រធានផ្នែកស្រាវជ្រាវហើយនឹងអភិវឌ្ឍនៃការប្រវត្តិចំណាប់ធុរបស់ឥណ្ឌូនេស៊ីហើយបាទសូមការអនុញ្ញាតពីខ្ញុំក៏ថាគឺបាទគឺថាផ្ដល់ព័ត៌មានច្រើនទាក់ទងទៅជូនអង្គសមាជជាជាងថាវាជារបាយការណ៍របស់ប្រទេសឥណ្ឌូនេស៊ីដោយឡែកនោះបាទអញ្ចឹងកន្លែងនេះគឺថាខ្ញុំសូមលងតែម្ដងបាទតែយើងប្រិតមើលទៅលើបាទទិដ្ឋភាពសេដ្ឋកិច្ចបាទ COVID-19 គឺថាប៉ះពាល់ទៅដល់សេដ្ឋកិច្ចពិភពលោកហើយនៅក្នុងនឹងដែរគឺថាឥណ្ឌូនេស៊ីក៏ជួបប្រទេសនៅស្ថានភាពដូចគ្នាផងដែរគឺថាមនុស្សប្រមាណជា1លាននេះគឺថាបាទធ្លាក់ទៅអភិប្របាទគិតពីខែកុម្ភៈបាទហើយបន្ថែមទៅនឹងដែរមនុស្សប្រមាណជា1លានគឺថាធ្លាក់ទៅក្នុងភាពក្រីក្រវិញក៏តែជំនួយកំពីសង្គមរបស់រដ្ឋាភិបាលគឺថាបាននៅតែអនុវត្តហើយបាទគឺថាសេដ្ឋកិច្ចឥណ្ឌូនេស៊ីនេះគឺថាងើបឡើងវិញបាទគឺវាជាសញ្ញាណមួយបញ្ជាក់ច្បាស់ថាយើងងើបឡើងនៅក្នុងអត្រីមាសទី2ហើយកម្លាតនៃកាលហ្នឹងគឺថាភាពកម្លាតនេះគឺវាប្រមាណជាខ្ទង់7%បាទ 7.1% ធៀបជាមួយនឹង បាទការថយចុះឡើងប្រមាណជា5.6%ក្នុងចំណោមការកត់សម្គាល់របស់យើងហើយគឺថាសេដ្ឋកិច្ចគឺថារំពឹងងើបឡើងវិញនៅក្នុងឆ្នាំ2021ហើយនឹងទទួលបានភាពធន់ទ្រាំរបស់ខ្លួននៅក្នុងឆ្នាំ2022គឺប្រមាណការឡើងប្រមាណយើងព្យាករប្រមាណការឡើងប្រមាណ 4.4% ជាពិសេសគឺពាក់ព័ន្ធទៅនឹងតម្រូវការនៅក្នុងស្រុកហើយនឹងស្ថានភាពរឹងមាំរបស់សេដ្ឋកិច្ចហើយក៏មាននៅឆ្នាំឆ្នាំ2022គឺការឡើងប្រមាណជា 5.1% ផងដែរនេះគឺដោយសារថាការរួមចំណែករបស់ពលរដ្ឋនឹងការផលពីការផលកាលពីឆ្នាំ2021ចំណែកផ្នែកឧស្សាហកម្មវិញបាទសម្រាប់ឆ្នាំទី2ធៀបជាមួយនឹងប្រទេសជិតខាងយើងមើលឃើញថាប្រទេសចិននិងវៀតណាមគឺថាយើងការងើបឡើងរបស់យើងគឺថាលឿនផងដែរអញ្ចឹងចំពោះបើសិនជាយើងចូលរួមលើកកម្ពស់ផ្នែកសុខាភិបាលហ្នឹងគឺថាវាដូចគ្នាផងដែរវាជួយរួមចំណែកអភិវឌ្ឍនៅវិស័យហិរញ្ញវត្ថុរបស់យើងហើយគឺថាក្រុមហ៊ុន80%គឺថាទទួលនៅការអនុភាពនៅក្នុងប្រទេសនៅក្នុងកត្តាសេដ្ឋកិច្ចរបស់ខ្លួនគឺមានអនុភាពគួរឲ្យគាត់សម្គាល់ផងដែរគឺចុះរហូតដល់ប្រមាណជា 20% ចំពោះក្រុមហ៊ុនផ្សេងៗទៀតទទួលរងគ្រោះពីការប៉ះពាល់ទៅលើការងារហើយនឹងអនុភាពនៅក្នុងការលក់គឺថារហូតដល់ 40% នៅក្នុងវិស័យអចលនវត្ថុគឺហើយចំពោះវិស័យខ្លះទៀតហ្នឹងគឺថារហូតដល់ 75% ផងដែរនៅពេលខែធ្នូឆ្នាំ2022គឺជាឃើញថាស្ថានភាពតាមរយៈការវិតម្លៃទៅលើចំណុចគឺថាអ្នកវិតម្លៃទៅលើចំណុចវត្ថុហ្នឹងគឺយើងមកឃើញនៅក្នុងដូចក្នុងតារាងនេះផងដែរទន្ទឹមគ្នានឹងផងដែរគឺក្របអចលនវត្ថុដែលបានចុះជាប្រមាណជាជាង 3,500 ផ្សេងទៀតពីឆ្នាំ2018ដល់2020ចឹងសុខភាពគឺថាប្រមាណជា 42% អញ្ចឹងតាមរបាយការណ៍នៃការវិតម្លៃនេះនៅរបាយការណ៍វិតម្លៃគឺថាសបញ្ជាក់យ៉ាងច្បាស់លាស់ផងដែរពីការថយចុះប្រមាណជា 26% គិតពីឆ្នាំ2019ដែលផលជាផលប៉ះពាល់ពី COVID-19 ដល់សេដ្ឋកិច្ចហើយបន្ថែមទៅនឹងផងដែរគឺថាយើងឃើញថាមានការថយចុះទៅបីមុននឹងជំនួយរដ្ឋបាលមុនឆ្នាំ2020ដែរគឺថាយើងឃើញថាមានការថយចុះផងដែរនៅក្នុងឆ្នាំ2017គឺថារហូតដល់ 40% ផ្ទាល់តែម្ដងដែលក្នុងនោះគឺថាប្រមាណជាមុនពេលដែលមានការថយចុះពីឆ្នាំ2017នៅពេលដែលមានផលប៉ះពាល់ពីជំនួយរដ្ឋបាលនេះគឺថាវាប៉ះពាល់ខ្លាំងមែនទែនពីប្រមាណជាbillion $បើយើងធៀបជាមួយនឹងស្ថានភាពនៅក្នុងប្រទេសទាំងមូលតែម្ដងហើយអញ្ចឹងពីខាងវិស័យធនាគារវិញគឺថាគាត់តំណទៅលើឧស្សាហកម្មវិតម្លៃចលនានោះគឺថាយើងឃើញថាមានការថយចុះផងដែរហើយយើងគិតថាវាអាស្រ័យវាពឹងផ្អែកទៅលើធនាគារច្រើនទៅលើវិស័យធនាគារហើយវាមានផលប៉ះពាល់គួរឲ្យកត់សម្គាល់ផងដែរទៅលើឧស្សាហកម្មនេះតែម្ដងគឺថាយើងឃើញថាមានសក្តានុពលមួយចំនួនដែលយើងអាចអនុវត្តបានក្រៅពីវិស័យធនាគារនេះគឺទៅលើការវិតម្លៃចលនាវត្ថុនៅពេលបច្ចុប្បន្ននេះយើងឃើញថានៅពេលអនាគតគឺថាយើងនឹងមានជាអង្គភាពទទួលបន្ទុកសម្រាប់ការវិតម្លៃពីយើងទាំងអស់គ្នាគឺថាយើងត្រូវតែបោះជំហានចូលទៅក្នុងទីផ្សារប្រកបដោយអភិរក្សជាពិសេសគឺថាយើងគឺថាជាមួយនឹងការឡើងនៃបច្ចេកវិទ្យាការវិស័យនៃបច្ចេកវិទ្យាផលគឺថាយើងអាចមានគម្រោងនៃការវិតម្លៃមួយជាក់លាក់ការបានកត់ផ្សាយចឹងហ្នឹងហើយយើងក៏ត្រូវតែស្វែងរកនៅសក្តានុពលនៃការផ្ដល់ប្រឹក្សាផ្សេងៗទៀតផងដែរនៃពី emergency ទៅទៅនឹងការប្រើប្រាស់នៅបច្ចេកវិទ្យា digital គឺថាបង្ហាញឃើញថាការទទួលយកនៅបច្ចេកវិទ្យា digital គឺថាគឺថាទៅដល់ 75% តាមរយៈការប្រើប្រាស់បណ្ដាញ digital ដើម្បីពិនិត្យទៅលើអចលនវត្ថុទាំងអស់នេះអញ្ចឹងគឺថាមានការកើនឡើងពីការលក់បន្តទៅលក់តាម digital ខ្ញុំគិតថាយើងទទួលបានគឺថាពេលវេលាការប្រព័ន្ធអញ្ចឹងមួយទៀតតកតងទៅនឹងការរំតាមបែបកន្លងថ្មីខ្ញុំឃើញថាយើងដឹងទាំងអស់គ្នាយ៉ាងហោចណាស់មានចំណុច4ដែលយើងអាចសម្រាប់ខ្លួនជាមួយនឹងស្ថានភាពថ្មីនេះទី1គឺឆ្លើយតបទៅលើកំណើនបាទនៃតម្រូវការបេដូរពីការ digital ទៅជាគំរូបែប digital ហើយមួយទៀតគឺការផ្លាស់ប្ដូរនៅក្នុងកម្លាំងពង្រឹងអត្តសញ្ញាណតាមរយៈការធ្វើការទីផ្សារតាមបែប digital យើងអាចទៅលើ digital ហើយមួយទៀតនោះគឺតកតងទៅនឹងភាពទស្សនវិជ្ជាផ្លូវច្បាប់និងភាពមិនប្រកបជាមួយចំនួនអញ្ចឹងរដ្ឋបាលគឺថាពិនិត្យមើលទៅលើស្ថានភាពទាំងផ្នែកនយោបាយហើយនឹងការវិវត្តរបស់វាផងដែរអញ្ចឹងវាមានលទ្ធភាពច្រើនយើងអាចបំពេញការងារបាទបើសិនជាមានការចាក់ផ្សាំងរហូតដល់ 70% អីជាដើមអញ្ចឹងគឺថាយើងមិនអាចធានា 100% ថាការងារយើងការងារនេះយើងអាចជិះផុតពី COVID-19 ទេហើយក៏មានការផ្លាស់ប្ដូរដែរនៅក្នុងបរិយាកាសនៃការអនុវត្តការងារទៅពី 21% ទៅដល់ 76% នៅក្នុងឆ្នាំ 2020 អញ្ចឹងគឺកើនប្រមាណជា 55% នៃការអនុវត្តការងាររបៀបរបបអញ្ចឹងដំបូងឡើយយើងអាចឃើញថាបាទការវាយតម្លៃគឺថាយើងអាចនឹងធ្វើទៅបានដោយសារត្រូវការកម្លាំងពលតែយើងមានភាពប្រកបប្រជាប៉ុណ្្នឹងដែរជាពិសេសបើយើងមានហេដ្ឋារចនាសម្ព័ន្ធ digital អញ្ចឹងនេះគឺជាការផ្លាស់ប្ដូរនៅក្នុងបរិយាកាសការងារដំបូងឡើយគឺថាយើងអាចត្រូវពិនិត្យមើលដំបូងយើងគិតថាអូខេដល់ធ្វើការពីចម្ងាយគឺថាទៅបើយើងចូលចិត្តទៅយើងធ្វើការត្រូវតែធ្វើការតាមបែប remote ពីចម្ងាយបាទពេលខ្លះវាពិបាកមែនទែនបាទពេលខ្លះបាទយើងគាត់ថាយើងត្រូវថាអូខេធ្វើការនឹងបែបប្រាប់កណ្ដាលបានលឿនអីជាដើមគឺថាយើងអាចតាមរយៈការបើកយើងអាចតាមដានមើលថាតើវាមានបញ្ហាអីឬក៏មានការកែសម្រួលអីទេនោះត្រូវតែយើងមានការគិតគូរបែបហ្នឹងពាក់ព័ន្ធទៅនឹងលទ្ធភាពនៃការអនុវត្តការងារហើយបន្តពីនោះផងដែរដល់ពេលដែលយើងអាចចាប់ផ្ដើមគិតទៅលើកិច្ចការទាំងនេះថាត្រូវការបុគ្គលិកបច្ចេកទេសអីទៀតការទំនាក់ទំនងជាមួយអតិថិជនយ៉ាងម៉េចតែយើងមានភាពប្រកបប្រជាក្នុងការបង្ហាញទៅដល់អតិថិជននេះតាមរយៈប្រើប្រាស់ Zoom ហើយមួយទៀតយើងឥឡូវនេះយើងឈានទៅដល់ការប្រើប្រាស់ digital ហើយយើងក៏ត្រូវរៀបចំឲ្យមានប្រព័ន្ធ digital មួយជាពិសេសនៅក្នុងសម័យ digital ពាណិជ្ជកម្មនេះដើម្បីយើងអាចអនុវត្តការងារវាយតម្លៃអចលនវត្ថុរបស់យើងបានកប់ប្រសើរហើយបាទអតិតងទៅនឹងអវរិយមនេះគឺថាយើងឃើញថាយើងត្រូវចាំបាច់ត្រូវបង្កបរិយាកាសមួយនៅក្នុងនេះមកជាអ្នកវាយតម្លៃអចលនវត្ថុនោះគឺថាយើងអាចចាំបាច់ត្រូវតែទាញយកឱកាសពីបច្ចេកវិទ្យាចំណុចតើបច្ចេកវិទ្យាហ្នឹងបើបច្ចេកវិទ្យាហ្នឹងអាចជួយយើងយ៉ាងម៉េចបានបាទដើម្បីបង្កើនប្រសិទ្ធផលភាពធន់ទ្រាំឬក៏សិនជាយើងផ្លាស់ប្ដូរទៅលើទូនីតិនៃការវិតម្លៃជាក់ស្ដែងរឿងនេះគឺជាសំខាន់មែនទែនសម្រាប់យើងដែលត្រូវជជែកគ្នាពិនិត្យមើលរួមគ្នាតន្ន័យរបស់អ្នកដែរពីធនាគារពិភពលោកក៏ថាបាទផ្នែកវិស័យហិរញ្ញវត្ថុធនាគារនឹងយើងឃើញថាការងារទាំងអស់នេះពីច្រើនគឺថាធ្វើការពីផ្ទះផ្ទាល់តាមម្ដងបាទគេអាចធ្វើការងារពីផ្ទះសម្រាប់ការងារផ្សេងទៀតដូចយើងក្នុងនាមជាអ្នកវាយតម្លៃអចលនវត្ថុនោះគឺមានភាពមិនប្រកបជាច្រើនផងដែរមុននឹងជំងឺរាតត្បាតគឺថាយើងបានជួបប្រទេសយើងក៏ឃើញថាគឺថាមានការប្រកួតប្រជែងផងដែរនៅក្នុងឧស្សាហកម្មនេះគឺថាយើងអាចចាំបាច់ត្រូវតែមានការគិតគូរអំពីស្ថានភាពសេដ្ឋកិច្ចសកលបាទក៏ថាប្រមាណជា 16% ឬក៏ចំណុចផ្សេងទៀតគឺពាក់ព័ន្ធទៅលើការវិនិយោគឲ្យជាដើមចំពោះគំរូធុរកិច្ចដែលយើងឃើញថាក៏មានការផ្លាស់ប្ដូរទៅ digital ហើយវាជាការអត្ថប្រយោជន៍ផ្នែកយុទ្ធសាស្ត្រតែគិតមើលឃើញអំពីភាពសំខាន់ដែលឧស្សាហកម្មមួយចាំបាច់ត្រូវអនុវត្តហើយក៏វាពាក់ព័ន្ធទៅគំរូសេដ្ឋកិច្ច digital នេះក៏ថាអាចធ្វើយ៉ាងម៉េចឲ្យបង្កើនបទពិសោធន៍របស់អតិថិជនក៏ដូចជាចុះបើខាងពីឧស្សាហកម្មវាតម្លៃចំធំមានតម្រូវយ៉ាងម៉េចនៅសារ៉ាប់បណ្ដូនេស៊ីគឺថាយើងមិនតាន់មានអផាទីចង្អុលផ្លូវច្បាប់ទេពាក់ព័ន្ធទៅនឹងការប្រើប្រាស់តាមបែបdigitalនៅក្នុងធុរកិច្ចនេះក្រុមហ៊ុនគឺថាចាំបាច់ត្រូវតែមានកិច្ចខំប្រឹងប្រែងមានគំនិតឬក៏ប្រព័ន្ធ digital របស់ខ្លួនឯងដើម្បីធ្វើការវាតម្លៃជាការពិតណាស់គឺយើងអត់ទាន់ដឹងថាតើការងារនេះគឺថាវាមានវិវត្តលឿនមែនទែនបើសិនជាយើងមិនសម្របខ្លួនឈានទៅរកគំរូសេដ្ឋកិច្ច digital ទេគឺថាយើងដើរមិនទាន់នឹងបច្ចេកវិទ្យាឬក៏ពេលវេលាទាំងអស់ទេហើយជាមួយនៅតន្ន័យពី IDC គឺថាបាទគឺក្រុមហ៊ុនប្រហែលជា 2000 ជាងបាទបានត្រៀមខ្លួនទៅឲ្យក្នុងការវិនិយោគទៅលើផ្នែកបច្ចេកវិទ្យា បាទវេទិកាសេដ្ឋកិច្ចសកលហ្នឹងក៏បានគប់បញ្ជាក់ផងដែរអំពីលទ្ធភាពនៃការប្រើប្រាស់ការងារហើយបាទការវិនិយោគទៅលើយុទ្ធសាស្ត្របាទក្នុង$1សម្រាប់បុគ្គលិកនេះគឺថាបានសូមជឿថាទទួលបានផលចំណេញច្រើនផងដែរការវិនិយោគទៅ digital នេះគឺមិនថាអូខេវាជួយគ្រប់គ្រងទៅដល់ប៉ុន្តែវាផ្ដល់នៅការវិនិយោគផលចំណេញមកវិញច្រើនដែរនៅពេលអនាគតអញ្ចឹងយើងគិតមើលថាតើវាទទួលបានផលចំណេញអីខ្លះពីការវិនិយោគទៅក្នុងផ្នែក digital ទាំងអស់នេះហើយក្រុមហ៊ុនភាគច្រើនគឺថាកំពុងតែព្យាយាមបាទវិនិយោគឲ្យទៅលើការអភិវឌ្ឍនៅមាតិកាក៏ខ្លឹមសាររបស់ខ្លួនដើម្បីផ្ដល់ព័ត៌មានទៅដល់អតិថិជនរបស់ខ្លួនថាតើក្រុមហ៊ុនទាំងអស់គឺថាអាចជួយបាទប្រើប្រាស់បណ្ដាញសង្គម LinkedIn Instagram ឬក៏គេហទំព័រជាដើមហើយខ្ញុំគាត់ថាអ្នកយើងអ្នកខ្លះតាន់មានបាទអញ្ចឹងតើអតិថិជនមានសក្តានុពលទៅយើងបើយើងអត់មានហេដ្ឋារចនាសម្ព័ន្ធដើម្បីបង្ហាញព័ត៌មានឬក៏ content ទាំងអស់នោះអំពីការងារ digital ជាថ្មីម្ដងទៀតគឺថាយើងមានបាទអត្ថប្រយោជន៍3ដែលយើងត្រូវពិនិត្យមើលទីមួយទៅលើគុណភាពប្រភពហើយនិងកិច្ចដំណើរការអញ្ចឹងមិនបាទការអនុវត្តការវិតម្លៃនៅឥណ្ឌូនេស៊ីនេះទីមួយគឺយើងផ្ដោតទៅលើបាទគុណភាពយើងពិនិត្យមើលទៅលើភាពត្រឹមត្រូវពេលបាទជួយទៅបានហើយការ digital តែមួយគឺថាมันអាចតែឯងមិនទេយើងចាំបាច់ត្រូវមានគោលនយោបាយហើយត្រូវមានឆាត់មួយដែលធានាគុណភាពនឹងឲ្យបានកាន់តែកប់ប្រសើរហើយដំណើរការគឺជាចំណាយការមួយដែលយើងមើលទៅលើទិន្នន័យហើយការផ្អាកផ្សេងទៀតដែលយើងបានតកតងជាហៅថាជា smart contract ដើម្បីជួយក្នុងការត្រៀមទៅលើទំហំវិសាលភាពការងារហើយទៅនឹងផងដែរអញ្ចឹងយើងអាចអនុវត្តការងារនេះបានដោយជោគជ័យជាដើមហើយនៅក្នុង IoT បាទវត្ថុដែលភ្ជាប់អ៊ីនធឺណិតនេះគឺថាយើងអាចធ្វើការពីចម្ងាយទៅមកបានណាភ្ជាប់ជាមួយនឹងវត្ថុផ្សេងៗដែលយើងចាំបាច់ទៅក៏ហើយទី2គឺតកតងទៅនឹងការរាយការណ៍ណាដែលយើងអាចមើលឃើញនៅពេលបច្ចុប្បន្ននេះគឺreport របស់ការប្រចាំគឺតកតងទៅនឹងតម្លៃឬក៏អ្វីផ្សេងៗជាការផ្ទាត់ការបញ្ជាក់បន្ថែមយើងត្រូវតែធ្វើរបាយការណ៍យើងឲ្យមានលក្ខណៈតេទៀងអាចថាវាជារូបភាពផ្សេងឬក៏អ្វីផ្សេងបែបហ្នឹងហើយអញ្ចឹងយើងឃើញការជាមួយនឹងការផ្លាស់ប្ដូរតើវាមានត្រូវការខ្លះដែលយើងចាំបាច់ត្រូវ
Followers want to have competitive advantage that are relevant to us now and in the future. The first is entrepreneurial and leadership skills, and I think this must be included in the valuation education program because if not, then what is in the mind of the valuers is only a profession whose job is estimate the value but cannot play an important role in process of change that is bigger and has an impact on national development. The second is the ability to adapt, flexibility and innovation to be able to keep develop and respond to the challenge. Having a good digital language communication skills is a plus point. Ability to use technologies such as drones, geomapping, and have the ability to use 3D or 4D applications such as building information modeling or BIM. And lastly, it should have the basic principles of ethics, professionalism, and collaboration. This is very important because collaboration is the key word in today's disruptive era. And lastly, has a high social environmental responsibility as a humanitarian agenda. At the end, we should believe that this Congress will give us some outlook about how we should take the challenge by knowing the strategies we should prepare. Thank you very much for this opportunity along with your kind attention. Good morning, everyone.
Mr. Harizul Akbar Naswa, thank you so much for your report.
សូមថ្លែងអំណរគុណទៅដល់តំណាងនៃប្រទេសឥណ្ឌូនេស៊ីសម្រាប់របាយការណ៍ប្រចាំប្រទេសរបស់ខ្លួន
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker, Ms. Amy Anapira, Chief Assistant Director of National Property Information Center, Valuation and Property Services Department of the Ministry of Finance of Malaysia. Good morning.
ជាបន្តទៀតសូមស្វាគមន៍របាយការណ៍ប្រចាំប្រទេសស្ដីពីវឌ្ឍនភាពសេដ្ឋកិច្ចនិងទីផ្សារអចលនទ្រព្យដែលបង្ហាញដោយលោកស្រី Amy Anapira តំណាងក្រសួងហិរញ្ញវត្ថុនៃរាជាណាចក្រសហព័ន្ធម៉ាឡេស៊ី
Okay, good morning to all the participants.
The focus of today's presentation is on the Malaysia property market performance at the first half of 2021. This is the outline of my presentation today. I will start off on the property market activity, followed by the property market status, and the last section is on the house price movement. The Malaysia's gross domestic product performance in comparison to Q2 last year registered a contraction of 17.2%, while this year we saw a huge increase in GDP at 16.1%. Similar pattern is also seen in the property market performance in terms of transaction. And another indication is the loan application and the loan approval for the purchase of residential property. In terms of value of application this year, compared to last year, 2020, you can see there's a huge change in the loan application with an increase of 86%. Same goes for the percentage of change for the loan approval. But then if you see in terms of ratio, which is the percentage of loan approval over the loan application, the percentage is about the same as last year. For non-residential property, it is quite similar with the residential property. There's a huge change, huge increase, which is about 52.6% of the loan application compared to last year. Same goes for the change in loan approval. But again, in terms of ratio, it's still within the range of less than 35%. Let's proceed in terms of property market transaction. As you can see, for the first half of 2021, we recorded nearly 140,000 transactions worth around 62 billion across all subsectors. If we compare to the first half of 2020, you can see a huge increase of 21% in terms of volume and 32.1% in terms of value. The significant increase was due to the low base in first half of 2020. Let's look at the contribution of transaction volume by subsector. The residential subsector remained dominant and led the overall property market with 65.8% contribution in the volume of transaction. This was followed by the agriculture at 18.9% and commercial at 7.5%. In terms of value, residential took the lead with 55.6% share, followed by the commercial with 17.6%. Now we'll move on with more detailed analysis. For the residential segment, we can see that the transaction volume trend and also the value trend are on the uptrend for both. For volume, we can see that the increase of more than 22% in terms of value. We can see, in terms of value, we can see that nearly 35% increase compared to first half of 2020. And this is in terms of the breakdown of transaction by price range. You can see that nearly 60% of the residential transactions are dominated by those priced 300,000 and below. In terms of market activities as compared to last year, you can see a significant rise in all the price segments. Now on the supply side, we have roughly 5.9 million of existing residential units with around 430,000 in the incoming supply as well as in the planned supply. This slide shows us the construction activity in terms of completion, starts, and new planned supply. You can see that against last year, more construction activities are being recorded in the first half of 2021. Completion at 8.7%, starts at 33.8%, and new planned supply at 36%. I'll now show you the property market performance. These are the numbers for the residential new launches. New launches are the primary market from the developers. In total, 16,660 units of residential unit being launched in the first half of 2021 and recording a moderate sales performance of around 25%. By price range, you can see that the highest launches come from the 300,000 to 400,000 price range, followed by the 200,000 to 300,000 price bracket. For the residential overhang segment, you can see that there's 31,112 overhang units in the country in the first half of 2021 with the value of more than 20 billion. Overhang is defined as completed units but remain unsold in the market. When compared to previous half years, the overhang numbers had reduced since the peak in 2019.
In terms of number, when we compare to the second half of 2020, we can see an increase of 5.2%, and correspondingly, the value of overhang increased by 6.2% compared to the second half of 2020. Further breakdown by type, you can see that more than 60% of the overhang units are contributed by the high-rise units and followed by the terrace units. Most of the overhangs unit fall under the 200,000 to 300,000 price range. When we group this price range into 4 categories, we can see that more overhang units in the higher price bracket of 500,000 and above, which takes about 50% of the total residential overhang in the country. And under the category of unsold under construction, and we have now about 75,000 unsold units, while the unsold not constructed, we recorded a lower magnitude of 13,000 units. Okay, now we look at the Malaysia House Price Index. Index point at Q2 2021 stand at 197.9 point. Year-on-year trend show a decline in terms of price, while on the quarterly movement, you can see a similar decline but at a slightly higher rate. Over the years, Malaysia see a gradual decline in terms of the percentage of increase. And due to the pandemic and the effect on the economic sector, we can see that the house price is slowly moving in the contraction side of the market. In the latest slide, I will share with you the latest figure that recently published. Now we move to the commercial sector. Let's look in terms of the transaction. It recorded the same pattern trend as residential. There were 10,433 transactions worth 10.93 billion recorded in the first half of 2021. Both transaction volume and value increased about 28%. And this is in terms of the breakdown of transaction by price range. Commercial transactions are dominated by those priced 300,000 and below with 32.6%, while another 28.3% priced between 500,000 to 1 million. And by segmentation of commercial transaction, terrace shops dominated more than half of the transaction in the first half of 2021. Now take a look at the commercial inventory. This number is in terms of unit for shops, service apartment, and SOHO. SOHO is an acronym for small office, home office. We have about 500,000 of shop units, nearly 300,000 units of service apartment, and almost 50,000 of SOHO units. Other inventories under the commercial sector, we have more than 1,000 shopping complex buildings in the country, another 47 buildings in the incoming supply, and 10 buildings in the planned supply. While for purpose-built office, we have more than 2,500 office buildings, another 44 buildings in the incoming supply, and 13 buildings in the planned supply. Now let's look at the service apartment construction activity. We can see that compared to last year, slightly less completion were recorded, but higher starts and higher new planned supply. On the service apartment market status, the number increased over the years, but the magnitude had already declined. There are more than 24,000 units of completed but unsold service apartment in the country. And in terms of value, we see a decline compared to last year. The service apartment being a commercial property, and most of the overhang units are priced above 500,000. These are the numbers that have been in the market and remain unsold for the past years. And for the unsold under construction service apartment unit, we have now around 42,000 units, while for the unsold not constructed, we recorded around 6,500 units. Now, take a look at the purpose-built office and shopping complex supply and occupancy. If you look at the performance, both are showing lower occupancy rate compared to last year. For this year, we're recording 78.5% for purpose-built office and 76.6% occupancy rate for shopping complex. If we break it down by private purpose-built office, the occupancy level is even lower. As we seen earlier, the overall occupancy, which comprises government and private buildings, stand at 78.5%. However, the occupancy of private purpose-built office stand lower at 71.7%. Shopping complex performance recorded a downtrend occupancy rate over the years. The occupancy rate for the first half of 2021 is at 76.6%. Now, in terms of industrial property transaction, It recorded the same pattern as residential and commercial. There were 2,562 transactions worth of 6.48 billion recorded in the first half of 2021. And if we compare to the first half of 2020, you can see a huge increase of 29.4% in terms of volume and 19.8% in terms of value. And again, this is due to the low base in first half of 2020. By types, terrace, factory, and vacant plot dominated industrial transaction with 32.2% and 27.5% each. And in terms of the breakdown of transaction by price range, you can see that nearly 50% of the industrial transactions are dominated by those priced above 1 million. Let's have a glimpse on industrial property inventory. On the supply side, we have roughly 120,000 existing industrial units, with nearly 4,400 units in incoming supply and more than 6,700 in the planned supply. Okay, now some update. Our latest statistics show that the market activity softened in the first 9 months compared to last year, while value increased by 20%. The increase in total value was due to the several major transactions recorded in the commercial sector, and residential overhang improved as more units were absorbed, though quite the opposite for service apartment. As I mentioned earlier on the Malaysia house price latest update, this is the latest quarter 3 2021 figure. Year-on-year trend show a decline in terms of price by a margin of less than 1%, while on the quarterly movement, you can see a similar decline by a higher rate of 1.9%. And again, Malaysia continue to see a gradual decline in terms of percentage of increase. That brings us to the end of my presentation. With just 1 month left, how will market perform by year end? For 2021, the domestic economy is on track to expand by 3% to 4%, while growth will be supported by the increase in economic activities as containment measures are progressively relaxed amid continued policy support. And in terms of property market, it is expected to remain soft but may gain momentum in line with the growth in economy and supported by the implementation of various government initiatives and assistance. Okay, with that, I end my session. Thank you everyone for your kind attention. Back to you, MC.
Ms. Amy Anapira of Malaysia, thank you so much for your presentation.
បាទសូមថ្លែងអំណរគុណទៅដល់គណៈប្រតិភូមកពីប្រទេសម៉ាឡេស៊ីដែលបានថ្លែងរបាយការណ៍ស្តីពីវឌ្ឍនភាពសេដ្ឋកិច្ចនិងអចលនវត្ថុរបស់ខ្លួន
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is Ms. Hannah De Vera from Institute for Philippine Real Estate Appraisers of the Philippines.
ជាបន្តទៀតសូមស្វាគមន៍បទបង្ហាញរបាយការណ៍ប្រចាំប្រទេសស្តីពីវឌ្ឍនភាពសេដ្ឋកិច្ចនិងទីផ្សារអចលនទ្រព្យដែលបង្ហាញដោយលោកស្រី Hannah De Vera តំណាងវិទ្យាស្ថានអ្នកវិតម្លៃអចលនវត្ថុ Philippines.
Morning. I'm Hannah De Vera from the Institute of Philippine Real Estate Appraisers, and I will be discussing the Philippines economic and property outlook for 2021. Following a 6.9% increase in 2019, the Philippines GDP fell by negative 8.1% in 2020. The decline was caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Industry experienced the greatest decline among the three major industrial origins, with a negative 13.2% annual change, compared to a 5.5% annual change in 2019. Philippines per capita gross national income also declined by negative 12.6% from the previous year's 3.9% annual change. Meanwhile, per capita GDP decreased by negative 10.8% from 2019's 4.6% annual change. The Philippines' 2020 headline inflation rate is 2.6% year-on-year. The rate of growth was slightly higher than the previous year's rate of 2.5%. The largest contributors to this trend are alcoholic beverages and tobacco index. Core inflation, excluding selected food and energy items, remains unchanged. Logistics chain issues has been causing supply shocks from late 2020 through 2021, leading to rising inflation. Moreover, election-related spending in the first quarter of 2022 is expected to consumption and inflation. However, inflation is not expected to exceed 3.5% and should subside in late 2022. There were $190 billion in outstanding loans for private capital expenditures from commercial banks and universal banks as of December 2020, which was less than 2019. Loans outstanding have slightly increased in 2021, extending to 2022 as distressed businesses restructure existing loans while banks tighten approvals. The employment rate was 59.5% in the fourth quarter of 2020. Among the three major industry groups, the services group employs the greatest number of people, accounting for 56.9% of the workforce. For the unemployment rate in the Philippines rose to 10.3% from 5.1% the previous year. It is expected to increase in 2021, but have begun easing as the economy opens in late this year. The latest data from the Central Bank of the Philippines showed $6.59 billion of FDIs flowing into the country in the year 2020. Equity infusions primarily came from Japan, Hong Kong, and ASEAN countries, and were primarily invested in manufacturing. For the property market overview, the COVID-19 pandemic caused a massive economic slowdown in most countries in 2020. In the Philippines, many industries had to rethink their business models, and many businesses had to close permanently. The property market was weak due to most office workers working from home or being laid off. There was a record high vacancy rate and a negative take-up rate for the year in Metro Manila. An exodus of Philippine offshore gaming operators, or POGOs, during the year added to the occupancy issues. To retain existing tenants and attract new ones, landlords reduced rental rates and made building improvements. Residential pre-selling take-up reached a new low of 2,612 units in the fourth quarter of 2020, a significant decrease from the previous quarter. Meanwhile, the total take-up for 2020 is 6,977 units. This slowdown is the result of COVID-19's negative effects, as well as lower demand from expatriates, local professionals, and the absence of POGOs. Capital values for Metro Manila residential properties during the fourth quarter fell 6.6% to $4,198 per square meter. Premium 3-bedroom unit rental rates in Metro Manila CBDs fell 4.5% to $15 per square meter per month, down from $16 per square meter in the previous quarter. Demand for office space in Metro Manila plummeted in the fourth quarter of 2020, with office transactions totaling 70,700 square meters. Furthermore, 2020 net take-up was negative at 183,100 square meters. Demand was driven by traditional companies such as e-commerce, fintech, telecom, healthcare, and logistics. In Metro Manila, these firms account for 196,000 square meters of office transactions. Meanwhile, POGOs fell by 91% in 2020 to 48,000 square meters from 554,000 square meters the previous year. The majority of industries have also reassessed their operational efficiencies, resulting in a paradigm shift away from traditional office spaces and toward work from home or hub and spoke models. As a result, vacancy rates are expected to rise further, reaching nearly 10% of total Grade A office stock by the end of 2020. High vacancy rates also had an impact on rates in Metro Manila CBDs, with a 1.5% quarter-on-quarter decline to $23 per square meter per month. Lessors had to lower their rates as a result in order to attract more occupants. Only 425,500 square meters of new office supply was completed due to several building completions delayed as the pandemic impeded construction schedules. And as for the retail sector, there were no shopping malls completed this year. Consumers were encouraged to buy more from online retailers, which reduced foot traffic in physical stores even more. Furthermore, difficulties in the retail sector can be attributed to a slow inflow of remittances from OFWs, bonus cuts, an increasing unemployment rate, and negative consumer sentiment. Real estate developers in the Philippines have decided to continue and complete their mall projects between 2021 and 2023. Among the most anticipated developments are the following. With schedules pushed back, major developers have become more aggressive in their online shopping strategies and services to offset losses caused by load. From April to October 2020, the government-imposed travel bans in response to the pandemic contributed significantly to the decline in foreign arrivals. During the lockdown, majority of hotel guests were returning overseas Filipino workers, frontline health workers, and professionals working in Metro Manila, whose daily commutes were hampered by the suspension of public transportation. As a result, hotel occupancy rates in Metro Manila have decreased significantly. Metro Manila's average hotel occupancy rate fell to 23.3% in 2020. However, hotels gradually regained their footing in the last quarter of 2020 due to lockdown easements. The average room rate in Metro Manila was $45, up 26% from the previous quarter. And the existing supply was 40,200 rooms as of the fourth quarter, with completions only recorded in the first quarter of 2020. For the industrial sector, despite the period's slow take-up for the industrial sector, the average Greater Manila selling price increased by 6.1% to $121 per square meter in the second half of 2020, while monthly rent for existing logistics space averaged $7 per square meter in the same period, owing to the area's growing online retail presence and mobility, which increased overall demand for logistics space. For years, the Calabac corridor has served as the country's primary industrial hub, with Batangas dominating industrial land supply with 30.6% share. There have been no new developments recorded, and the 5 industrial parks that were supposed to be completed this year has been delayed. In contrast, the Greater Manila area saw significant annual logistics space completions in 2020, adding 255,600 square meters to the total existing stock. Laguna is expected to house the majority of new logistics space over the next 3 years. Pandemic restrictions hampered infrastructure rollout in 2020, and spending fell to $17.52 billion or 4.6% of GDP. The Investment Coordination Committee of the National Economic and Development Authority approved 20 projects. Foreign loans or official development assistance were used to fund 19 of the 20 approved projects. Some of the big ticket projects approved in 2020 are the following. Tourism, OFWs, unemployment, and consumer confidence all fell as a result of COVID-19. Despite the pandemic's effects, the real estate industry may thrive. Several office buildings offer lower cost single office rentals for up to multiple occupants. It is predicted that flexible workspace will grow 10% in the next 3 years. Co-working spaces will appeal to multinational corporations, outsourcing firms, small businesses, and digital nomads alike. On the other hand, low-cost housing developments near infrastructure and transportation hubs are expected to be in high demand. Meanwhile, the local e-commerce markets are sprouting up in the industrial sector. Storage, sorting facilities, and irradiation facilities are in high demand. The next wave of growth is expected in Central Luzon and Calabarzon. Finally, after the revised rules went into effect into REITs to help democratize the real estate market, these allowed small investors to invest alongside large corporations in high-value real estate. Some of the major developers are already offering REITs. Overall, mass vaccinations and optimistic government forecasts are expected to boost the economy by the end of 2021. That's all for the Philippine update, and thank you.
Ms. Hannah De Vera of the Philippines, thank you so much for your presentation.
សូមថ្លែងអំណរគុណតំណាងពីប្រទេសហ្វីលីពីនសម្រាប់របាយការណ៍ប្រចាំប្រទេសរបស់ខ្លួន
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, please allow us to introduce to you our next speaker from Singapore, Mr. Oi Shao Chung, Council Member, Valuation and General Practice, Singapore Institute of Surveyors and Valuers.
ជាបន្តទៀតសូមស្វាគមន៍បទបង្ហាញរបាយការណ៍ប្រចាំប្រទេសស្ដីពីវឌ្ឍនភាពសេដ្ឋកិច្ចនិងទីផ្សារអចលនទ្រព្យដែលបង្ហាញដោយលោកអ៊ួយសៅឈឹងតំណាងពីវិទ្យាស្ថានអ្នកវិតម្លៃរបស់សង្ហបុរី
Good morning, Your Excellency, Chief Delegates, and participants of the 23rd ASEAN Valuation Association Congress. My name is Sao Shen. I'm very happy to share with you on the Singapore market update this morning. So I will be sharing with you on the Singapore demographics, the Singapore economy overview. I will also be sharing with you on the Singapore residential, office, retail, and industrial properties overview. I will also wrap up on the economic and market outlook for Singapore. So let's start the journey now for the Singapore demographics. So Singapore population is about 5.45 million, and it comprises of the following in terms of residential population. For Singaporeans itself, it's about 3.98 or 3.99 million, whereas permanent residents is 3.5 million. In terms of the population density, you can see that over the years, from 1970s to up to now, you can see over the years, the population density is increasing. That is because there are more and more people coming to Singapore. But in terms of the median age, you can see over the years, it has gone up quite a bit from, let's say, 20 over years in 1980 to 2021. The median age is about 41.8. And this can be explained whereby Singapore is having a aging population, whereby Singaporeans are not having enough children or kids to replace itself. So the population is aging over time. Household size, you can also see below that the size has gone down from 3.5 in 2010 to 3.22 in 2020. The graph below here also depicts the demographics over time, where you can see that the blue line, which is 2021, the dark blue line, over time has gone up. In particular, the age group of the 65 and over, it is increasing, and then which dovetails with the earlier point where Singapore is facing a aging population. In terms of the education in Singapore, you can see the chart below. Over the years, the literacy level in Singapore has increased, especially in the area of tertiary education, which is depicted by university. In the 1980s, the tertiary education level is probably very low. You can see that it's single digit.
but up to 2020, the tertiary education literacy level has gone up to 33%. That's because other than the traditional universities which Singapore has in the past, over the last decade, Singapore has also explored bringing in partnerships with different universities across the world and setting up campuses within Singapore. And that's why in terms of education options, especially Singaporeans has a lot more as compared to the past. So if you look at the chart at the bottom, in 2010, the mean school years is about 10 years, whereas in 2020, the mean schooling years has gone up to 11.3. So long and short is that you can see in terms of education and literacy level in Singapore, it is something that is very important and highly focused. I will next talk about the Singapore economy overview. This chart here depicts the Singapore GDP contributions in terms of the various sectors. You can see that on the right-hand side, marked by light blue and dark blue, these are what we call as the goods producing industry, which is manufacture and construction. They form up to 25% of Singapore GDP. The other 70% are largely made up of services, let's say real estate, fire and insurance, information and communications, and even professional services. Why this is so is because Singapore, in terms of its economic structure, it is not that of a manufacturer economy, but rather that of a tertiary economy whereby services forms the fundamentals or the basis of its economy, or a larger portion of it. So that's why in terms of the GDP contribution to Singapore, services is actually that of 70% of the nominal value. The table here depicts the GDP of Singapore on a year-to-year basis, as well as on a quarter-to-quarter basis. So on a year-to-year basis, the Singapore economy grew 6.5% as compared to that of 15.2% for the previous year. On a quarter-to-quarter seasonal adjusted basis, the Singapore economy expanded by 0.8% in the third quarter. So you can see that there are some final aspects in terms of what the chart has showed. In terms of manufacturing, it is on a year-to-year basis for the third quarter, it has gone up by 7.5%. What are the contributions or the reasons for this increase? Growth is actually supported by output expansion in all clusters, except for chemical cluster. In particular, the electronics and precision engineering clusters continue to post very strong growth. And why this is so? This is because there is a very strong global demand for semiconductors and semiconductor equipments whereby the smart chips are required. So this is actually a very strong demand that fueled for this. Construction sector-wise, on a year-to-year basis, it has gone up by 57.9%. And why this is so is also this can be explained by the very low base with reference to the previous year, where there are a lot of lockdowns as well as uncertainty because of the COVID-19. I think this is a situation which many of my fellow presenters from the different countries have shared earlier, whereby their countries are also very much affected by COVID-19. Okay, the next thing I want to share with you is with respect to the different markets within Singapore, in particular the residential, offices, retail, and industrial markets in Singapore. So let us go into the Singapore residential market first. This is a map of Singapore. You can see that Singapore is very small. It's only about 728 square kilometers. In terms of the zoning, or what I call as the identification of the key areas within Singapore, you can see that the ones that is highlighted in orange is what Singapore deemed as the core central region. So why do we call this the core central region? Because this is where the genesis of Singapore begins, at the mouth of the river, and then where commerce activity starts, and then activities slowly branch outwards towards the rest of the country. So if you look at the screen below, towards the bottom right-hand side of your screen, that is where we deem as the core central region. The ones in gray are also areas that are highly centralized, but they are not part of what we call as the core central region. The rest of the areas in white are outside of the central region, or what we say as anywhere else in Singapore. So in terms of the residential market in Singapore, the price has increased by 1.1% in third quarter. This is also following that of the increase of 0.8% in the previous quarter. In Singapore, when we talk about housing, generally the description falls into two classes, one of which is landed, which are your terrace houses, your semi-detached, and your detached houses, or what we call as bungalows. So in short, they are properties that are seated on land itself. Then for non-landed, what commonly are known as apartments or condominiums. These are the general descriptions in terms of how properties will be labeled in Singapore. So sales volume for non-landed secondary sales market actually went up 52.7% of the, oh sorry, not went up, made up 52.7% of the total transactions in third quarter, whereby it exceeds that of the primary market with 3,745 transactions. This can be explained in terms of the following reasons. Why people are constantly buying is because they see that there are rising sale price in Singapore and also construction delay. As you would recall earlier, one of my fellow presenters have also shared about supply chain disruption. This is not just happening elsewhere. This is very similar to that of Singapore, where we see supply chain disruption because countries around the world, they are closing their borders, or even the provision of construction materials to Singapore has also been stopped or disrupted. So in fact, construction cost is very high in Singapore at the moment because of the impact of COVID-19. So as a result, the building or new buildings coming on stream are very heavily affected and tested. So what happens is you see buyers trying to buy up new projects that are currently available, or if not, they may even swing towards that of the secondary market, or what we call the resale market, because demand for housing can be immediate and can be pressing. So that is why there is this situation where properties, especially current ones in Singapore, you see an increase in value. In terms of rental treatment, volume of rental transactions is healthy amid the tight inventory in the market. Most of the tenants are also beginning to take up longer lease as they evaluate their long-term accommodation. As you see, countries are now starting to gradually unwind or at different stages of opening up. But as the world starts to live and accept COVID-19, we are starting to see, countries trying to form up travel lanes, travel arrangement, or even business arrangement in some means to try to go back to commerce activities prior to the onset of COVID-19, where we try to live life normal again. So in terms of expatriates coming back is also a similar trend. So they are contributing to the rental demands as companies, especially that of tech sector, ramp up their activities in Singapore. So in terms of prices for residential, it is expected that for this year, 2021, that Singapore will rise about 7 to 9%. The next one I'll share with you is the office market in Singapore. So this trend, this table here depicts the trend for the price in offices in central region as well as the rental index within that of the central region. You can see that price has gone down by 2.4% in third quarter itself. Rental has also decreased by 3.5% in third quarter. This is not very surprising because for the past year, Singapore, very similar to my fellow Asian countries, are also adopting a work from home arrangement. So whereby most people are staying at home and working remotely so as in the effort to curb the spread of COVID-19. Therefore, demand for office space as compared to in the past and coupled with the low levels of commerce activities, demand for this office space are in fact very low or less compared to the past. That's why you see the trend of rental and price continue to slide downwards to the south. But I think there's a silver lining to this. Office leasing activities are, although moderated, but they are higher as compared to a year ago. In the third quarter of this year, you can see that their demand for smaller units has eased as compared to the previous quarter. And more importantly, because now there are so much vacant space or spaces that are available for lease due to the less take-up as compared to the past, there's this phenomenon whereby tenants are more choosy, or what we call in the industry terms, a flight to quality, whereby they want to choose to go to office buildings with better specifications, which could mean perhaps larger floor plates so that they can house their whole department and company within the same floor, or if not, that of higher floor to building ceilings. And this, as a result, have also gave rise to a lot of pressure for older buildings, whereby they have to relook at their pricing or rentals in order to be competitive. In terms of office rent itself, we see that it should be cautiously improving 1 to 2% for the last quarter of 2021. For 2022 next year, the expectation is that rentals should pick up by 5%. The next I'll share with you is the retail market in Singapore. This chart itself is also from our planning authorities in Singapore. This pattern here is also very similar to that of the office itself, where you see a decrease in terms of the price and rental outcome. For the price itself, it is more or less plateaued, but for the rental itself, rental of retail space decreased by about 2.7% in the third quarter, and this was actually followed by 0.5 decrease in the previous quarter. COVID-19 presents very tough situation and challenges to the retail sector. There are numerous waves that happen in Singapore, different phases of state of lockdown, or in terms of Singapore, what we call as heightened alerts. So this is very challenging, and it doesn't help that because of the situation, tourists are not coming to Singapore. So in terms of demand for retail space, demand for shops, there is in fact really very tough or very little demand for them. And also F&B establishments in Singapore are also facing very difficult times, because in Singapore, we do have different phases of COVID measures, where we even go to the extent of limiting the number of people that can be dining out. Sometimes can be 2, sometimes can be 5. So a lot of the F&Bs are struggling to adapt to the challenges that market, that is probably the best performing sector within Singapore, whereby we see broad price and rental recovery across Singapore. Manufacturing activities continue to drive the recovery as semicon manufacturers supporting electronics are very sought after. Precision engineering and electronics also record very good growth, especially that of the few quarters. You can see that even transport engineering and chemical clusters are also faring very well. So overall, industrial space in Singapore is the best performing asset at the moment, whereby there are a lot of good outcomes and for price and rental. We see healthy sustained demands and strong global manufacturing investment interest for the year 2021, whereby price and rent should increase by about 1 to 3%. As Singapore stabilizes, we see that for the next year, 2022, this can take up to about 3 to 5%. So I will just wrap up by what is the outlook for Singapore in the year 2021, as well as what is to be ahead. So COVID-19 has stabilized. Singapore vaccination rate is also very high at about 80%. Barring a major setback, Singapore should see continued recovery supported by large outward-oriented sectors, and the progressive easing of domestic and border restrictions will also help Singapore a lot, whereby it can help in the recovery of consumer-facing sectors as well as alleviate labor shortage. However, the recovery is uneven, especially with respect to different sectors. Why do I say so? You can see that for growth prospects of the outward-oriented sectors like manufacturing and wholesale trade, they will be strong and will continue to be strong. That is because the manufacturer sector is projected to see robust growth driven by large electronics and precision engineering clusters on the back of strong global demand for semicon and semiconductor equipments. For finance and insurance, information and communication sectors, they will also be positive, whereby the finance and insurance sector will be supported in part by expected increase in domestic and foreign credit, whereas for the latter, which is information and communication, they will be boosted by healthy enterprise and consumer demand for digital solutions and services, as well as games and software activities. The aviation and tourism related sectors, such as airports and entertainment, they will recover slowly because at the moment, different countries are still trying out different aspects of the travel lanes. Country to countries may have different concerns as to the COVID-19 situations with their respective countries. So in terms of going to life before COVID, it will be very different. But we see that countries are also working hard to make sure that they try to form some arrangement or agreement so that countries can open up to one another. So what we see is aviation will likely improve, although not at the pace as compared to the manufacturing sector. Consumer-facing sectors such as retail and F&Bs, they are very heavily affected, but they could recover as restrictions will ease over time and consumer sentiments will improve in tandem with better labor market conditions. However, these sectors, we do not foresee them returning to pre-COVID levels so quickly due to the subdued marketing outlook. And last, the construction and marine offshore engineering sectors are projected to see recovery, as largely due to low base last year. But labor shortages, we see will continue to weigh in on the recovery of these sectors. But with broader restrictions set to be eased, we see that it will be better as compared to last year. So overall, in August, it was actually Singapore has actually done a review of its GDP projection where it was upgraded to 6 to 7%, up from previous 4 to 6. As of yesterday, the new numbers have came out, and Singapore GDP growth for 2021 will be at 7%. So with that, I also end my presentation. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Oai Chao Sheng of Singapore has just now finished his presentation. Thank you so much, sir.
សូមថ្លែងអំណរគុណទៅដល់លោកអ៊ុយសាវឈៀងដែលបានបង្ហាញរបាយការណ៍ប្រចាំប្រទេសរបស់ខ្លួន
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we would like now to introduce to you the next speaker from Thailand, Ms. Naritanan Palakavong, Board Committee of the Valuers Association of Thailand.
ជាបន្តទៀតសូមស្វាគមន៍របាយការណ៍បង្ហាញប្រទេសស្ដីពីវឌ្ឍនភាពសេដ្ឋកិច្ចនិងទីផ្សារអចលនទ្រព្យដែលបង្ហាញដោយលោកស្រីនរតនានផលកវង្សសមាជិកនៃគណៈកម្មការសមាគមអ្នកវិតម្លៃអចលនទ្រព្យថៃឡង់
Good morning. Can everyone hear?
Yes.
Yes, we hear you clearly.
Okay. Good morning, President of AVA, Chief Delegates, all delegates and participants. Now you have already listened to 6 different countries on economics and property update in Thailand. It's time to see how is Thailand doing in the midst of COVID-19. Are we still able to attract interest from foreign investors? And what next for Thailand real estate market after COVID-19? What will be the ongoing trend for our real estate sector? Hang on. Please. Okay, let's me continue. Since the COVID-19 has impacted the whole world economy, including Thailand, the foreign investor confidence in Thailand still high despite COVID-19 impact. Based on the survey of 600 companies, we found out that 19% has planned to increase their investment in Thailand, and 76% expect to maintain their current investment level. And if we look at the investor survey and COVID-19's impact, it shows that 63% impact but still able to operate, and 29% greatly affect and still able to operate. Only 7% unaffected and operating as usual. Only 0.17% has ended their operation. Now let's see our FDI. Back to 2018, we see significant dropping trends on our investment trend during the early start of COVID-19, and end of last year was the biggest drop. I think because the investors are just in the wait and see stage, And right after this year, earlier, the number of investment projects has picked up. Surprisingly, the total investment value has gone up double from the year before. If we look by the country, Japan has the highest investment value of 67,000 million Thai baht, followed by USA, Singapore, and China. And what are the most popular industry? Electronics was ranked in the first top, followed by medical and petrochemical. Now, I believe everyone should have these questions, whether how long will it take for the global economy to recover from the impact of COVID-19 back to the pre-pandemic level. Would it be 1 year, 3 years, or 5 years? Based on KPMG research, most people agree that it will take approximately about 3 years. So what will be the directions for our real estate market? What will be the ongoing trends for our sector? Here we see three key trends emerging for our real estate sector. The first one is digitalization of work. Second, transformation of physical retails. And the last one is shift towards ESG consideration. Here, let's take a look at our first trend, digitalization of work. I believe that everyone should be familiar with this word. Closed space, crowds, close contact. Remote work has become the norm for many companies, especially those in the city center. So now people are work from home, the need for office space has been disrupted, and less preference for returning to office, especially those millennials. And the COVID-19 has encouraged investment in flexible office concept and new business model. Price and quality are likely to be the key factor going forward, and the market will likely to see relocation rather than increase in demand for additional office space. Since the COVID-19, the transformations of physical retail become our second important trend, because the COVID-19 has hard hit on physical retail. So it's time for the retailer to upgrade their innovations and to trying to get people, focus on what people need and people experience on visiting the retail. So the traditional retail are now at risk. The trend is shift for a shorter lease, increase in demand for the pop-up space. So to respond to the customer needs across the channels, you need a greater focus on innovation and technologies, change to building design and functional, and the concept and new business model should be introduced. Much greater level of partnership and trust also important, and creating mutual benefits between both landlords and tenants are able to grow. The COVID-19 has increased the perceived value of sustainable asset. So our third trend would be shift toward ESG considerations, and these considerations include deploying more sustainable designs, choice of materials, no contact building access solutions like using mobile applications or no touch lift or door, for example, and more environmentally friendly space, off-site constructions models, energy efficiency solutions, and other technologies. So these considerations would deliver true competitive advantage for the real estate owner, investor, and operator. Thank you. ขอบคุณค่ะ
ขอบคุณค่ะ Thank you, Miss Palakawong from Thailand for your report. We truly appreciate your time with us today.
សូមថ្លែងអំណរគុណតំណាងព្រះរាជាណាចក្រថៃសម្រាប់របាយការណ៍ស្តីពីសេដ្ឋកិច្ចនិងអចលនទ្រព្យរបស់ខ្លួនសូមអរគុណ
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we would like now to introduce to you our last speaker of the morning session of today's Congress. So we are very excited to please invite Ms. Boy Kanli, expert of Valuation Management Division from Vietnam, to give us her report. Thank you.
ជាបន្តទៀតសូមស្វាគមន៍បទបង្ហាញរបាយការណ៍ប្រចាំប្រទេសស្ដីពីវឌ្ឍនភាពសេដ្ឋកិច្ចនិងទីផ្សារអចលនទ្រព្យដែលបង្ហាញដោយលោកស្រី Boy Kanli តំណាងនៃក្រសួងសេដ្ឋកិច្ចនៃសាធារណរដ្ឋសង្គមនិយមវៀតណាម
Okay, thank you, Cambodia. Ladies and gentlemen, today on behalf of Ministry of Finance in Vietnam, we're going to give you Vietnam country report that related property market in the pandemic. In our presentation, we divide two main parts, Vietnam economic outlook and Vietnam property market. When it comes to population, labor, and employment, according to General Statistics Office, the total population in Vietnam was estimated at 97.6 million people in 2020. And Vietnam labor force participation rate is updated quarterly, available from March 2011 to December 2020, with an average rate of 76.8%. In terms of economic indicators, the GDP in Vietnam was $271.16 billion in 2020, according to official data from the World Bank. Vietnam's gross domestic product shrunk by 6.17% year on year in the third quarter of 2021. Full year growth may come at 3.5% to 4%, according to Planning and Investment Ministry estimate, significantly lower than the government initial target of about 6.5%. Now have a look at valuation professional in Vietnam. In 2017, total valuation enterprises is around 218 companies with 1,020 practicing valuers. After 4 years, in 2021, the number of valuation enterprises is around 333 with practicing valuers was estimated at 1,700. Based on chart, we can see that the impact of the pandemic can already be seen in this area. Significantly, none of professional certificates have been granted in 2020 and 2021 due to the pandemic. The second part is Vietnam property market overview with two biggest cities in Vietnam, Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City. In terms of Hanoi retail market, in quarter 3, 2021, the retail market continued to see heavy impact of the fourth wave of COVID-19 and strict pandemic prevention measures compared to the same period from last year. The retail market has not improved significantly. Average asking rent in the Hanoi CBD area have been on a downward trend, decreased by 1% quarter on quarter, while increased 4% year on year. Vacancy rates in the CBD have a slightly decreased, reaching 10.5%. Moving forward to Ho Chi Minh City retail market. In quarter 3, 2021, the market did not welcome any new supply. The total retail supply in Ho Chi Minh City stayed at over 1 million net lettable area. The rental rate in the CBD was unchanged from the previous quarter, and the rental rate in the non-CBD was decreased of 3.8% quarter on quarter. In terms of Hanoi office market, in quarter 3, 2021, total office supply of Hanoi market reached more than 1.6 million square meter net lettable area. Due to the COVID-19 cases, starting around May, Hanoi implemented social distancing for the majority of quarter 3, 2021. Still, positive net absorption was recorded in quarter 3, 2021 of more than 6,000 square meters. Average vacancy rate of existing office projects slightly decreased compared to quarter 2, 2021. Asking rent of existing office project in Hanoi remain unchanged compared to quarter 2, 2021. And quarterly sales decreased 50% quarter on quarter due to the citywide 2-month lockdown. Primary stock decreased 8% quarter on quarter and 27% year on year. Now have a look at Ho Chi Minh City office market. Ho Chi Minh City imposed Directive 16 and forced people to work from home over the past 120 days. In such circumstances, most landlords apply support policy of reducing 20 and 50% of rental rate. The number of transactions in the quarter was 30% lower than the average of the previous 2 months. Occupancy was stable on quarter at 90%, but decreased 4% year on year. Rent decreased 1% quarter on quarter to $31 per square meter per month gross. With Hanoi condominium market, sold unit recorded in quarter 3 2021 reached 3,000 and down 33% year on year. Primary prices are forecasted to increase at 5 to 7% per annum over the next 3 years. Moving forward to Ho Chi Minh condominium market, the total new supply in the first 9 months of 2021 was down 35% compared to the same period in 2020. Based on chart, we can see the mid-end segment led with 43% and followed by high-end 31% and affordable with 23%. The number of sold units in quarter 3 2021 decreased by 68% year on year because of limited new supplies. Similarly, the first 9 months of the year was down 17% compared to quarter 3 2020. The average primary price was up 17% year on year. With the strategy of developing satellite urban areas of Ho Chi Minh City, the real estate picture in the south is promisingly prosperous. In terms of Hanoi Villa Townhouse, in the third quarter, the supply decreased 75% quarter on quarter and 47% year on year. However, with abundant future supply and demonstrated in the first half 2021, the market outlook is promising and should quickly return to pre-pandemic transaction levels. Within Ho Chi Minh City, future supply to 20 and 24 is expected to reach nearly 9,600 dwellings per plot. Now have a look at the 5 key regions in Ho Chi Minh City. We can see Thủ Đức City has a greatest share at 33%, followed by Bình Chánh with 24%. With an available land bank, good urban planning, and infrastructure appeal, Thủ Đức City continue to attract residential development. And last but not least, Vietnam industrial market. According to CBRE Vietnam, average occupancy rates of existing industrial park in 5 key northern industrial cities and provinces reaches 78.5%. Similarly, the occupancy rate of 4 key southern industrial cities and provinces reached 87.2%. In quarter 3 2021, demand for industrial land and warehouse slightly declined because of the impact of COVID-19 on inter-provincial traveling and international flight. Recent difficulties show the need to diversify the supply chain, expanding warehouses, especially cold storage for food and agricultural products. Vietnam industrial real estate market became an attractive opportunity for domestic and international investors. And at the end, the COVID-19 pandemic significantly affect all over the world with related activity in various new ways. One of these that have been property market as well as valuation. However, we believe that this is only temporary and we are pinning the hope on a rebound when the virus is put under control. Thank you for listening and thank you Cambodia for effort to organize this such online event. Thank you all.
Ms. Boy Kanli, expert of Valuation Management Division, our speaker from Vietnam. Thank you so much for your report.
សូមថ្លែងអំណរគុណលោកស្រី Boy Kanli ដែលជាតំណាងនៃក្រសួងសេដ្ឋកិច្ចនៃសាធារណរដ្ឋសង្គមនិយមវៀតណាមដែលបានលើកឡើងពីរបាយការណ៍ប្រចាំប្រទេសរបស់ខ្លួន
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, at this moment, we would also like to take this opportunity on behalf of our president in Cambodia to present each of our speaker today during the morning session of the certificates of appreciation.
អាដាមលោកជំទាវលោកស្រីនិងនាងកញ្ញាតំណាងឲ្យប្រធាននៃអង្គប្រជុំទាំងមូលយើងខ្ញុំសូមអនុញ្ញាតចែកនៅលិខិតថ្លែងអំណរគុណទៅដល់វាគ្មិនពីប្រទេសជាសមាជិកទាំងអស់ដែលបានឡើងថ្លែងរបាយការណ៍ពីប្រចាំប្រទេសរបស់ខ្លួន
Well, first of all, we would like to mention again and thank you so much from the bottom of our heart and our president and our technical team here in Cambodia to our speaker from Brunei, Mr. Iqbal bin Haji Mohammed Taufik, and we would like now to present to you a certificate of appreciation. Thank you and congratulations.
សូមអបអរសាទរទៅដល់លោក Iqbal bin Haji Mohammed មកពីព្រះរាជាណាចក្រ Brunei Darussalam.
Thank you. And next, the same thing. We would also like to present the certificates of appreciations to our speaker from Cambodia, Mr. Son Siep.
សូមអបអរសាទរលោកសុនសៀបអនុប្រធានសមាគមអ្នកវិទ្យាអចលនវត្ថុកម្ពុជា
Thank you, Mr. Son Siep. And next, another certificates of appreciation from our president here to Mr. Harizul Akbar Naswa of Indonesia.
សូមអបអរសាទរលោក Harizul Akbar Naswa មកពីឥណ្ឌូនេស៊ី
Honestly, we truly appreciate all of your time. And next, a certificate of appreciation to our speaker, Miss Amy Anak Pira from Malaysia.
សូមអបអរសាទរលោកស្រី Amy Anak Pira មកពីរាជាណាចក្រសហព័ន្ធម៉ាឡេស៊ី
And next, our certificates of appreciations to Hana De Vera from the Philippines.
សូមអបអរសាទរលោកស្រី Hana De Vera មកពីហ្វីលីពីន
We truly appreciate the time of our next speaker as well from Singapore, Mr. Oi Xiao Zheng.
សូមអបអរសាទរលោក Oi Xiao Zheng មកពីសិង្ហបុរី
Today, everybody is so special. And again, the same thing, we would like to present the certificates of appreciation from our president here in Cambodia to Miss Naritanan Palakawong from Thailand.
សូមអបអរសាទរលោកស្រី Naritanan Palakawong មកពីរាជាណាចក្រថៃឡង់
Next, an appreciation of certificates to our speaker, Miss Boy Kanli from Vietnam.
សូមអបអរសាទរលោកស្រី Boy Kanli មកពីសាធារណរដ្ឋសង្គមនិយមវៀតណាម
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, and last but not least, another special person in our Congress today, AVA Secretary General, Madam Susan Vitjojo.
អាដាមលោកជំទាវលោកស្រីនិងនាងកញ្ញាយាវវាគ្មិនដែលរៀបចំកម្មវិធីរបស់យើងដែលមិនអាចខ្វះបានគឺលោកស្រី Susan Vitjojo អគ្គលេខាធិការនៃសមាគមអ្នកវិទ្យាតម្លៃអចលនវត្ថុអាស៊ាន
Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, our Congress today has been such an amazing time. It's been a beautiful day. Thank you so much for joining us. Even physically, we are not together. We are online, but I know our heart is together.
It's together.
Thank you once again. And I would also like to take this opportunity to mention and to thank you to our main sponsors, We Trust Appraisal as Indication Plus, and Luxury Holiday Villas Forest Harmony and Golf Harmony, the first and biggest holiday villas project in Kampot, Cambodia.
អាដាមលោកជំទាវលោកស្រីនិងនាងកញ្ញាកម្មវិធីរបស់យើងបានឈានមកដល់ទីបញ្ចប់ហើយនាព្រឹកនេះប៉ុន្តែយើងមិនអាចបំភ្លេចបានទេបញ្ចប់បឋមកម្មវិធី2របស់យើងគឺទី1ក្រុមហ៊ុនវាយតម្លៃអចលនវត្ថុ We Trust ដែលជាក្រុមហ៊ុនវិតម្លៃអចលនវត្ថុនៅក្នុងព្រះរាជាណាចក្រកម្ពុជាដែលប្រើប្រាស់ប្រព័ន្ធបច្ចេកវិទ្យា Digital Indication Plus និងទី2សូមថ្លែងអំណរគុណទៅដល់ផ្ទះវិឡាលំហែកាយបែបអឺរ៉ុប Forest Harmony នាខេត្តកំពត
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, our morning session has now come to an end. So I think everybody deserve a break. So please take your time, enjoy your lunch, and we will be back here together online for the afternoon session, which is starting at 1:30 sharply. So please take your time and enjoy your lunch. Thank you.
អាដាមលោកជំទាវលោកស្រីនៅនាងកញ្ញាកម្មវិធីសមាជនាព្រឹកនេះបានឈានដល់ទីបញ្ចប់ហើយតែប្រកបទៅដោយផ្លែផ្កានិងមានភាពរលូនកម្មវិធីរបស់យើងនឹងផ្ដើមសារជាថ្មីម្ដងទៀតនៅរសៀលនេះផ្ទាល់តែម្ដងនៅម៉ោង 1:30 នាទីសូមអរគុណ
Thank you.